Islam was let's say prayer. Get it started up. Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Jew Ali. Ashe. Please, more. Did you park on the street?
I parked on the side.
Alright.
On the other side. Okay.
Peace, brothers.
Yeah, here we are. The second installment of the Canaanland Moorish History Month lecture series. Tomorrow we have Brother Seton Rabe Skyping at the Spartan Scarborough, where we have the Drew Ali Day, 2467 Eglinton Avenue East. Couple of things that we wanted to just put on the record so that people could consider a little bit more about what the Moors are presenting. This is from Metro News, Friday Metro News. If you didn't hear, Mounties are set to take over Parliament Hill security. So since the shooting went down up at Parliament Hill, the Mounties, we will just put on here, originally named Northwest Mounted Police. The Northwest Mounted Police turned into the RCMP and became the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Just so we can see where the jurisdiction lies, we know that the Mounties have the same hat as the sheriffs, right? The Mounties have their chevrons on their uniform, right? The article, nearly a century of parliamentary tradition is coming to an end, with the RCMP poised to take control of security inside the Parliament buildings. The government is seeking to give the Mounties power over what used to be an independent security team patrolling the halls of the House of Commons and Senate. Members of that tight-knit Commons team, led by former Sergeant-at-Arms Kevin Vickers, stopped a gunman's rampage in the center block last October. The RCMP has long had control over parliamentary grounds, but no jurisdiction inside the building. Right? So they had the authority to be on the grounds, and now they're extending that authority to them now going inside the building. Now what we have to keep in mind is that the Northwestern Mounted Police were the same ones that, the same renegades that they used to get rid of the Indians, so-called natives, on our side. Right. So when we hear Royal Canadian Mounted Police, we have to know that their history goes back, just like when we say New York City Police, right. Their history goes back to slave catcher, right. And all those things, because they like to put that perspective that, up here, so the Europeans up here, you know what I mean, it's fun, chilling, and no whatever, when atrocities went down here, just like they went down everywhere else. Yeah. Right? Okay. And also too, being that the Mounties are the highest level of so-called law enforcement for this side, know that they're taking their martial law, King Alfred, whatever stuff, up to the next level, because they're now giving them jurisdiction inside the building now. Okay, right? So just like how OPP doesn't do municipalities. Right. OPP only deals with provincial issues, only on the highway. You know, if they need assistance, they'll call the city quote unquote police to come on the highway to help or whatever like that, speed chase or whatever. But majority of the jurisdiction of the highway is OPP, right? So and remember that on top of Royal Canadian Mounted Police, there's also Provost Marshal, right? Military Sheriff, and there's also CSIS and all those other, you know what I mean? Just like how they got CIA, FBI, and they go down the line of all these different agencies that are responsible for the protection of the, you know, rights of Canadians or whatever, right? So they're stepping up their position, right? And we have to likewise do the same with our stuff. That we realize that, you know, we're in a good position right now, right? Because people are coming into the info, you know what I mean? Movies are putting it out, you know, rappers are turning to whatever, getting them consciousness, joining different organizations and all that stuff.
Mark Wahlberg was on the TV the other day with a fez on.
Who was that?
Mark Wahlberg.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Right?
Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Mark. Oh, Donnie Wahlberg? Yeah.
Oh, Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? So,
Yeah, that one.
if those guys playing around with fezzes and stuff like that, then you know that, you know what I mean, something's up.
In Toronto too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, was here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? That signals they're sending
Yeah.
to the Moors.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They obviously seen some YouTube or something like that to know that, you know, like when we think about things like that, you know, you might read an article and there's, you know, all pictures that they could use or whatever, there's a guy with a fez on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This guy wears a fez. You know? This continuous, you know, letting people know.
Yeah.
More so our people than anybody else, because majority of people already have this info. They already know that not all black people came over here on the slave ship and all that. They already know that, quote unquote, the black man is God, right? They have their own culture, whatever, where they honor us. They put us on high pedestal or whatever, and we don't even honor our own stuff, right? Now, we are dealing with Black History Month and putting a death to that every chance we get, especially during the month, so that people can be clear that Moors don't have an issue with our people when we say that we're not black, or we don't want nothing to do with black and blackness and black power or whatever, right? Our duty as Moors is to put out the correct information so that people out there could consider some things that they have never considered before, right? So there's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's 6 articles on this page, right? And we're just gonna quickly analyze the status of black versus other statuses, right? And now, you know, again, we got the articles, and if somebody goes to school to be a designer of something, right? They're taking pride in their stuff, right? There's no way that they have these articles on this page or whatever just out of putting out a newspaper. You know what I mean? So the first article is Leaders Back New Ukraine Peace Plan. And it goes into German Chancellor and French President to meet Putin on Friday in Moscow. And they go through the article, you know, they're talking about German Chancellor, French President, you know, Russian President, Moscow, Ukraine, Ukrainian.
So there's no black.
Right? No color identification.
Right.
Right? The other one is Jordanians rally against ISIL. Jordanians chant slogans to show their support for the government against terror during a rally in Jordan. Jordanians, whatever, and then, you know, they got the picture of them, and all of them are waving one flag. You know, 500 different flags because, you know, Jordanians are all these different groups of conscious whatever, right? Taiwan crash survivor says engine felt wrong. Then they talk about Taiwanese capital. Then they talk about the survivor from Taiwan named Huang Jin Sum, right? And Huang, right? Now, again, speaking about a place, and then the people of that place having a name relative to that place. No yellow people, yellow land, no civil rights or whatever like that, right? Extremists under attack turn fury on Cameroonians. Nigerian Islamic extremists, blah, blah, blah. And then once again, France president, Cameroonians, Nigerian, dealing with place names, not fictitious colorable labels, right? Law, fatal chokehold case, judge to hear arguments. 2 months after a grand jury declined to press criminal charges in the police killing of an unarmed New York City man, a state judge must decide whether to disclose details of the secret proceedings. The New York Civil Liberties Union and other petitioners have gone to court on Staten Island to demand that Judge William Garnett open the record in the Eric Garner case, a position opposed by Richmond County District Attorney Daniel Donovan. Garnett is set to listen to arguments at a hearing on Thursday morning. In court papers, the NYCLU cited the outcry over the grand jury's decision not to indict Daniel Pantaleo, the white New York Police Department officer seen on a widely watched video putting an unarmed black man in what the medical examiner called a fatal chokehold, as a compelling reason to make an exception to the long-standing practice of keeping the process secret. Right? So there's clear fraud in that second article, in the last article, that they specifically chose to call Eric Garner a black man, right? But they didn't call Jordanians, you know, butterscotch or color. They didn't call the Taiwanese yellow people. They didn't call the Ukrainians whatever, but they did call the so-called officer white, right?
Right, because he's in a colorable law state.
Right.
And he's under that occupancy.
Right.
So when it comes to the people in their nation, as they're rectified, they're described as their nationality, right? As they're relating to where they are, because that is their jurisdiction.
Right.
To deal with things on
their level, or
right, on a constitutional level, because
right.
they're dealing with worldly matters there.
Right. Right.
So
right.
that's why in our case, in our papers and things like that, they're gonna say, okay, they're gonna do their little investigation and they're gonna say, okay, either remember they still gotta confuse us, right? So they're gonna say, okay, well, this guy is white and these people are, and then they'll get down to black guy.
Yeah.
And when they're doing that, we're reading it, so then we're still out here being confused because they don't want to lose their power.
Right.
As it is, their power is through the media and through all the papers and all these sources
right.
that they have, right?
Exactly.
So,
right.
colorable law business.
Colorable law. Right. So anything that happens under color is automatically void, has no power, has no standing. So, where we're gonna go right now is with Brother Grand Chief Nature El Bey out in Asbury Park territory. We've been dealing with these Moors, right? These are some of the Moors that we say if it wasn't for these Moors, there would be no Canaanland Moors, right? Because we got directly connected with the proper Moors when we started this missionary work. We didn't have to deal with the people who weren't doing what they're supposed to do. We always dealt with the people who are constantly working. They don't have time for, you know what I mean, like passivity. because they realize that there's so much that has to get done in order for the people to, gravitate toward this. And we always make sure that we give, this brother a platform to teach, so that, people can get their perspective straight with regard to what Noble Drew Ali brought. Make sure that you got questions, even if it's past questions, something just happened yesterday, 4 months ago, something you're dealing with right now, whatever, historical stuff, law things, court things, whatever, put the questions up, and the brother will definitely, if not give you an answer, give you a resource where you can get your answers. So we're just gonna give it up for Grand Sheik, Lord Nature El Bey. Peace, more.
Y'all hit the way. Islam.
We're just gonna hit the light, so it's gonna be dark in here.
How's the sound?
Yeah, it sounds proper, Mark. Floor is yours, Mark.
Alright. Islam again. So my brothers and sisters,
Islam, brother.
thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be with you again and exercise some information that is vital for all of our growth and development. I want to start off by giving honors to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because he is the first and only one after the Reconstruction of America who has brought us this information, informing us that we're not Negro, Black, colored people, or Ethiopian. It might seem like a small thing, but it's very huge in understanding the psyche of our people today. I'm going to start off by going through some information that the Prophet has gave us for study purposes and instruction purposes, but it's going to help set the tone of what we're going to get into today. So a call he put out when he went to Chicago, Illinois with his movement, he said, "Come all ye Asiatics of North America and come hear the truth about your nationality and your birthright." He said, "Know that you're not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery." He said, "But this is a new era of time now, and now all men must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth." And once again, that's very important, and no matter how high we get in Moorish science, it all comes back to that statement. This is what we signed up for. Anytime we proclaim our nationality, we're agreeing to this duty, to this official duty, to this fiduciary duty, this open obligation to teach our people the truth about their nationality and birthright. This is something that is due process to them. It was something that was due process to all of us. So we owe that to someone else. It's called reciprocal helps and mutual obligations. So I'm going to just explain that in detail. Because our descent is Moorish, that's something that belongs to each and every one of us. The Prophet coined the term Moorish American. And the reason why he did that is for the simple fact that what he stated in his divine constitution, Act 6, that I just read. Because we were enslaved as a nation of people, as a government, as a body politic, what occurred was we were replaced or given the names Negro, Black, Colored, and Ethiopian. Which means that our stronghold, or our Moorish government at that time, if you will, had collapsed. that came to an end. We were defeated through war. We were colonized. So because we were colonized, we went through a period where we didn't have a national name, we didn't have national standards, we didn't have a national flag, and we didn't have what they call a national identity. So we were coined stateless persons. Being that we were coined stateless persons, we were also introduced to participate in another dimension of slavery. And this is the problem that our people have today, where when you talk to them about slavery, they think that you're trying to take them back a couple of hundred years, as it doesn't exist now. And this is what we have to learn on how to explain to our people, that slavery never ended in 1865. Even though the prophet has worded it that way in our Constitution, but slavery did not end. And this is the problem that we have in today, where we can't understand it on a larger scale, that slavery is still in existence. So when the prophet was talking about it lasted until 1865, what he was making reference to was a proclamation that Abraham Lincoln, who was the president at that time, President Lincoln had put together an Emancipation Proclamation. And he also put together what they call an Oath of Amnesty. And the Oath of Amnesty was put together for the simple fact that when the procedure or the process that they came up with to end slavery, it released the slave master's obligation, or not obligation, but their benefit or their privilege to maintain slavery. It disconnected that legal obligation that they can protect themselves under the Constitution by saying that their property, their slaves were their property. And at that time, before 1865, the Constitution actually protected the slave masters for keeping and maintaining their slaves, because slaves was considered as property. So what Abraham Lincoln came out with this proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation, was he ended voluntary and involuntary servitude with slavery. So because they ended slavery, according to a national consensus, slaveholders was not allowed to participate with slavery anymore. So being that they ended slavery on paper or in practice, they was not allowed to participate knowingly and willingly in the act of the slave trade. So what they did was they killed President Lincoln, and what they did was abandon his oath to amnesty and his Emancipation Proclamation. The 13th Amendment was passed that time, the original 13th Amendment, which had 20 sections to it, called the 1320. You can find that in the original archives of the Secretary of State, or you can go online and try to Google it. But when they killed Lincoln, what they did was they consolidated his original 13th Amendment with 20 sections and just kept 2 of the sections in there. So when you look at the Constitution of the United States today, it will have just 2 sections according to the 13th Amendment. But what they did was they dissolved the 18 sections that he put in there and just kept the 2 that will be, something that they can sugarcoat according to their agenda. So when they assassinated him once again, they took the 18 sections out and came up with a revised addition to the Constitution, which they call an amendment, which is known as the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was not ratified according to the Constitution of the United States, so therefore the 14th Amendment is not necessarily a constitutional amendment. So therefore it should be disregarded as such, and you need to know why they did that to understand how we got into this black trick, this black program, and we're going to explain that too. So moving right along, with the 14th Amendment, what they did was they put a section or a clause in there which is referred to as the 3/5 clause, which states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States become citizens of the state or the jurisdiction thereof. So that was a clause they put there to invite the Asiatics once again to participate in their bureaucratized slavery. And that's the slavery that we have today. The slavery we have today is, they refer to it as voluntary servitude. Because they say now that we're agreeing to be in the programs that we're in, or participate in the type of slavery that we're involved in. We're not forced to go into the cornfields or the plantation and pick cotton and do these things anymore. So they're saying that that part is over. But they haven't explained to the people the trick that they came up with to entice us to still participate in their legal bureaucratized slavery. So when they came out with this 14th Amendment, a lot of the Moors or the Asiatics that were so-called free at that time of 1865, they still didn't have any resources or any independence to take care of themselves, to take care of their families, etc. So a lot of them went right back to the system. But this time they participated in the programs that was put there for them because they were under the illusions that they're now citizens of the United States and have due process and constitutional protections at law, which was false. The Dred Scott versus Sanford case explains that how that was false. Yeah. Islam?
Yeah, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Where does like you're talking about us falling for the black trick and being classified as 14th Amendment. Where do the black leaders fit into that? And like, especially the ones, you know, coming out of slavery, the Frederick Douglasses and these people. And where does the naturalization versus nationality play in that area with Lincoln and the 13th Amendment and us being classified as Negro black colored through the 14th Amendment?
All right, Islam.
It's over?
One thing that occurred to us with the 14th Amendment was we were classified as the 3/5 of all other persons. That's part of the trick there, because to be a citizen of the United States, you have to be what the prophet refers to as the free national being, or otherwise the Constitution speaks about natural persons. So only natural persons are technically citizens of the United States, or part of the people of the United States, the true citizens, true national citizens, etc. So by being classed as all other persons, we were known as what we call artificial entities or corporations. That puts us under the 3/5 clause. So when they refer to us as 14th Amendment citizens, what they're saying that we're not a natural person. What Abraham Lincoln did was, when he came out with the Emancipation Proclamation, he also followed that what called the Oath of Amnesty. And what that was stating was, to be a citizen of the United States after you were freed, in order to be a citizen of the United States, to be recognized as one of the people, you now had to take what they call an Oath of Amnesty. That Oath of Amnesty was an oath for every individual who was so-called free, or what they call emancipated at that time. They take the Oath of Amnesty, and that oath was an allegiance to support the Constitution of the United States. Because that's the only way that you can technically be a citizen of the United States or a body politic government, is by taking an oath of affirmation to support the Constitution and to be a citizen of that government that you're saying that you hold allegiance to. And then you have to be accepted by its citizens. And that was through the process known as the Oath of Amnesty. So if for the ones that did take the Oath of Amnesty, they were recognized as citizens of the United States. But the ones who didn't, which was predominantly most of the Asiatics at that time, because it wasn't in play too long, they assassinated them. But after those who did not take the Oath of Amnesty was never recognized as citizens of the United States of America. So that's when they came out with that 14th Amendment and invited them to participate in what they call the U.S. citizenship, the U.S., which is the corporation, which never made them a natural citizen of the government. It only made them artificial citizens, which are mainly just incorporated artificial entities into the U.S. corporation, which is not a government. So they never came citizens of the United States. So that leads us to our leaders today, or the leaders that came after 1865. Let's just deal with the timeline. 1865, after Lincoln had the courage to do what he did, he was assassinated. There was no one else actually in a leader perspective to represent our people who took charge or actually took the torch of what Lincoln was trying to do, was trying to establish. Remember, what he was trying to establish never really got off the ground. That's why they assassinated him, so it wouldn't get any momentum. And the citizens never really understood what the whole process of proclamation was all about. So this leads us up to Prophet Noble Ali. He came along the scene, in 1913, teaching the people this information. And what he really did was he really picked up off what Abraham Lincoln was doing, and also added to what Abraham Lincoln was not doing. But from a leader perspective, he understood the ramifications legally behind being a citizen of the United States. That's why he says that this is a new era of time now. And now all men must proclaim. That's where that word proclaim comes in there. Proclaim also means to declare through oath and allegiance to support the Constitution of the United States. It's the same statement as the prophet said, telling us to proclaim our nationality. Because nationality deals with the citizenship of a particular government. That's what nationality deals with. That's the process on becoming a citizen of any de jure body politic, i.e. government. So he had the courage to do that in a leader form, but no one else had. All of our so-called leaders that we have today, and even in days of the past, as Grand Sheik is speaking about, none of them took the obligation to deal with nationality or citizenship. Because what they are doing is they're promoting the program or the agenda of the U.S. corporation. They never have in their agenda or intentions to deal with nationality or citizenship. That's why they don't speak about it. And for those who do speak about it, they speak against it towards them because they're part of the program. And during this time of Black History Month, in every school system or any college or any forum that has programs for what they call Black History, they always want to push the same people every year. They're talking to you about people like Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass. Everybody is speaking about were slaves. And not just slaves, but most of them was agents of the program. And I'm going to talk about the program later to explain what this program is all about that I'm speaking about. But you had a few of them that was against the program, like, say, for example, Harriet Tubman with the Underground Railroad. They want to tell you very little about Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner and those particular people because they was against the program. And they did everything in their power to try to decode the system and break away from the plantation. And they don't want to encourage that type of mindset in our people today, but they don't want us to break away from the system. Back then it was the physical plantation, but now we're dealing with the mental plantation. And they don't want you to break that mental state today. So they don't want to really tell you about anything that seems like it's decoding the system because they put it under the so-called Terrorism Act and things of that nature. And that's something that also we'll get into a little later. But your modern day leaders are paid agents. This is why they're so successful in their movements. They're getting funded by the same program or agency to promote whatever they're teaching. So in order to get your trust, they have to tell you some things that are true. They have to even speak against the system at times to make you think that they're against the program. But there is, to a certain extent, that they will go to in talking against the system or the program, that they will not cross a certain borderline that because they're still agents of that system. but it's enough to fool and trick the masses of the people to follow them, to fund them, etc. This is why you look at our movement. Our movement has the less sponsors, the less finances, the less support, the less recognition, the less airways, the televisions, etc. You don't hear about our movement, and it's because they don't promote that, because 85% of the television broadcasting network are owned by the Jews, the so-called Jews. But once again, it's a system or program that's not for the elevation of the people, of the Asiatic people of North America. It's all dealing with their demise, their downfall. And those who get the airplay and the recognition and the radio recognition and the funds that pull certain events off are paid agents. And those are your modern day leaders that we see on TV who are claiming to be in the best interest of our people. We got to be able to decipher the two and tell who to. You don't never hear anyone in Black history, from the school, from the scholars, from the professors at school, you don't hear anybody speaking about Noble Drew Ali. You don't hear the celebrities speaking about Noble Drew Ali, because most of the celebrities are part of the program. So once they start speaking about Noble Drew Ali, or even what Noble Drew Ali taught, that ends their funding. So you must understand why they don't speak about it. Sometimes we get emotional and we wonder why they don't talk about Drew Ali, or why the celebrities, they know the truth, or there's a lot of celebrities that know about this information. They will talk to us in secret about this information, but when they get that mic in front of them, they're not saying nothing about it. It's because they're not funded that way. So-called rappers, they will lose their record there. If they start talking about this information, it doesn't sell, the A&Rs don't want to hear it. Same thing with your movie stars all down the line. It's not in their best interest. So they don't want to speak about it because they know that's the end of their career. They have to find another job. So it's part of the fear in them that, every once in a while you see somebody who want to throw that information out, but then they just throw it out in cold and just leave it like that. To let you know that they're on the same page with you, or let you know that they know, but it's really not their agenda to really teach and carry this out. Like some of us, we sacrifice our lives. Some of you, we're here on a Saturday afternoon, we're here in reference or in lieu of the so-called Black History Month, because we want to make a difference. We want to make a change. So we sacrifice our time, and whatever the illusions of the world got going on out there, we sacrifice all of that to come here and take time out to try to educate our people, and some of us to learn, to learn how to better ourselves and how to educate our people. But you think these celebrities and people with these Federal Reserve notes, you think they have enough finances to do whatever they can sacrifice, not going to work and doing something and educate the people, but they rather not. So the only answer to that is they're part of the program. I want to also read something, Grand-Chief, before I move forward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
or was there any other questions pertaining to that subject before I move forward?
Anybody got? Yeah, that's good, man.
All right, Islam. And like I always encourage, the 14th Amendment is a very deep amendment, even though in the psyche of a Moorish American scientist, it's not an amendment. So I'm just making reference to it being an amendment just for communication purposes, so that you can understand what I'm talking about in reference. But whatever is not ratified, or whatever the Constitution does not support, is considered, lawfully speaking, notwithstanding. Notwithstanding is a legal term that means unconstitutional. So that's part of the language that we have to adopt. But the 14th so-called amendment is an amendment that everybody needs to research and do a treatise on it. We should have classes on that alone, and understanding from start to finish on what they had to do even to so-called get it passed. And even before you go into that, you need to study Abraham Lincoln. They put that movie out about Abraham Lincoln. Some of you probably have seen it, but you should go over that movie a couple of times. It's truth and falsehood strangely mixed, but it does reveal a lot of information in there to help you understand Overdraw Ali's movement. And it also helps you understand the position that all your leaders, i.e. your president, should uphold and take charge of as well. Because anyone that takes a stand like Abraham Lincoln took, they will quickly remove him from office by way of assassination. And the fact that they have to assassinate a president automatically exposes the fact that they're hiding something. When we speak about leaders, you know, we have leaders that's supposed to represent us as being Asiatic. But technically speaking, it's not even about Asiatic. Our leaders are supposed to represent the citizens at large. So your chief leader is your chief commander in charge, i.e. your president. He's supposed to he or she is supposed to represent the best interests of the citizens of the United States of America body politic. It shouldn't matter what nationality they are. We know race is a fiction, color is a fiction. So because of the race game, we look for leaders to represent us personally, because we know that everybody's going to represent their own. But technically speaking, we shouldn't even have to look for personal leaders or domestic leaders to deal with the issue that we're dealing with. That should be done through our national representation, from the president and his cabinet all the way down to your elected officials in your local government. So our problem today is not just our Asiatic leaders. I don't want us to just focus on them as being part of the problem. The problem is all of your elected officials and all of your leaders who you elect to represent you or to represent the interests of your government, because we are the government. Those ones that we put in charge to represent are supposed to follow the constitutional dictations and mandates of law. If they choose not to, then our issue becomes with them. Remember, the leaders that we're talking about, even if we go back to Martin Luther King, even if you want to mention Farrakhan, these are not our leaders. They never was our leaders. They claim to be concerned citizens who domestically take the position to represent our people at large, but they're not necessarily our leaders. We look to them for salvation because we don't know any better. So by default, they become our leaders. But Farrakhan is looked at as the so-called black leader. But he is, because he represents the mindset or the psyche of the black man, which is a fiction. But he does not represent the Asiatic people in North America. He does not speak and represent on their behalf. Through his chain of command of Elijah Muhammad and Farad, they have always targeted so-called black man of America. But that was never intended to represent the Asiatic or the natural man of North America, the natural person of North America, the Moorish American of North America. Their intention was to demise that from the very beginning because of the program that they was involved in. So we must understand that. So stop looking at them and focusing on them as our leaders, because we can't do anything about them directly, but we can do something about the people that we elect. And if we're not electing anybody, then we're still part of the problem, because we're acquiescing to the fact that somebody came in office through election. So we need to get involved in these politics, because now we can make a difference of who is elected and who's not elected, or who's elected, what do they talk about, what do they represent, and what legal decisions do they make when they get in office. If the people at large was educated on how to elect people and how to hold them to their fiducial obligation, then you will see those officers start to change the direction of their office, because the people will put fire on what they're supposed to do. So look at your county clerk as your leader. Look at your state governor as your leader. Look at your president as your leader. Although we know that they're not representing us. Understand what I'm saying? But they're the only ones that can make a change in our everyday life. So there are immediate leaders that we have influence on making a change. Don't worry about trying to change Farrakhan and trying to change Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and them, because they're agents of this program that we're speaking about. You didn't elect them, and you can't re-elect them, and you can't remove them from office. So that should not be our concern. Our concern is the ones who's making decisions on behalf of our government. Let's take back our government. So look at the ones who's sitting in those positions as your leader in government. And once you have that in your mind that those are your leaders and you need to make a change from within, then you'll have more power and you'll take more initiative to change what goes on in your day-to-day government. Start going to town hall meetings, start going to your city meetings, and get involved on that level.
Islam.
So,
James Trafficant Jr. in his 93 bankruptcy speech told the people that they should take back their country. Would you elaborate on when you say take back our government and what you're referring to when you say government?
yes, absolutely. We have one of the very unique governments of the world. We have what we are referred to as a republic form of government, which means a government by the people, for the people, by the people, or vice versa. And what that means is the people constitute the government itself. The government is not necessarily a building with people in it who make decisions or have departments of government. We have departments of government, but the government first is the people or the citizens of the government. They are the government. Among the people, they choose or elect the people in office to act on their behalf. And that's what we call the government departments, or what we call GOD, Government Ordinance Department. So when we deal with government, we're talking about the people, natural citizens of the land is the government. The people in office are their chosen representatives. The problem is we've been branded Negro, Blacks, and Coloreds, therefore we've been removed from the government altogether. This is what Drew makes reference to when he says, my people are outside the constitutional fold of government. We're outside of it. By answering up to the terms Negro, Blacks, and Coloreds automatically remove us from the government. I'm not talking about the building. I'm not talking about the White House. I'm not talking about the Parliament. I'm talking about from the government structure of the voice of the people altogether. Citizenship. When you think government, just think citizenship. You can't remove the two because they're one and the same. So by removing us from the government structure, allow themselves, speaking about the English male, 23 years of age and over, that was the original concept of who was citizens of the United States. That's how they started it. Then after the 14th Amendment, they start inviting other so-called people to participate with them in their citizenship. So you got to understand the origin on how that started as well. This is why they're saying, they told Dred Scott that he could not be a citizen of the United States. Or they said Negroes could not be a citizen of the United States because of the original format of what they refer to as several states of the United States of America was never intended for so-called Negroes or Black people or Asiatic people to be citizens of that United States. they later changed that. That's when they came up with that 14th Amendment and said, now we agree to let the Negroes or black people be citizens of the United States. And the only reason they did that is so that they wouldn't rebel, and they can invite them to participate in these programs, and they can tax them, where they can get finances from them and use them as collateral to England to pay off the national debt. That's the only reason they did that. So they kind of like veiled over the fact that they said the Negroes could be citizens, and they let them participate with a form of citizenship, which is not a natural form of citizenship. It was only a corporate form of citizenship. So to this day, they still, in theory, will say that so-called black people are not necessarily citizens of the United States. They will only say that they are 14th Amendment citizens, which are citizenship. This is why Drew Ali came up with the Naturalization Act for the Moorish American, because that was the only way that a Moorish American or Asiatic or North American can now be a legal or lawful constitutional citizen of the United States through the connection of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. If it wasn't for what Drew Ali did, we still wouldn't have any due process or law. Anything we talk about pertaining to this subject will be shot down, we will be locked up, and we'll be in prison for even talking anything about this if it didn't have any legal impact to it. So we better take heed on that level as well. And this is why no other leader can talk about the issue of citizenship, because they do not have a way to make their members citizen without going through a nationalization process, which they don't have the jurisdiction to do. That only lies within the Moorish Divine and National Movement's jurisdiction to do. No other government department, the Secretary of State cannot proclaim citizenship for you. They never came up with a naturalization act for Moors to become citizens of the United States. The Naturalization Act is only for foreign-born subjects to become privileged citizens to the United States of America government, but that's through the U.S. Corporation. The naturalization that they confer on foreign-born subjects is still not natural citizenship of the land. It's still under the 14th Amendment. Okay. So they never, our Department of Government never came up with a legitimate or de jure process for making a foreign-born subject or even a natural-born subject citizens of the United States. So therefore, technically, everybody who's claiming to be a citizen of the United States here are not citizens at all of the United States Republic form of government. They're only citizens of the U.S. foreign and artificial corporation. That's not citizens of the United States of America Republic, or like Prophet Drew Ali would say, to the free national republic of the United States of America. That's two different body politics. So the citizens are under the illusion of citizens. They're only privileged citizens under the 14th Amendment, which was never ratified. That means that they're really not U.S. citizens at all. So their citizenship is discretionary. The only true citizens of the land, technically, are Moors who have proclaimed their nationality. That's it.
Okay, question. So the group of Moors that say Moors are tied to the Naturalization Act, and that the Europeans made us foreigners by calling us Negro Black colored.
All right.
Could you speak on that position that they're taking? It's legitimacy or lack thereof?
Yes. Once again, the law is fixed and is vested within the constitution of any particular government. So, being that we're talking about Moors here in America, we're going to use the United States of America Free National Republic as a reference. The Constitution was referred to as the supreme law of the land for these United States here. That's where the law, even the Moors have to honor and oblige themselves to that. Anytime Moors start speaking against the Constitution of the United States, they're outside the constitutional fold of government, or have a lack of understanding thereof. Which leads me to say this: when you speak about the term naturalization, naturalization is regulated and governed by Article 1 of the United States of America's Constitution, where the people of the United States delegated Congress of the United States in Article 1, Section 8, to establish uniform rules for naturalization. So the people within their chosen representatives set aside Congress to come up with ingenious ways for naturalization to be conferred only upon foreign-born subjects. That's the whole key to this whole thing. It only applies to foreign-born subjects. Now, one thing that's missing from the teachings of a lot more is that the first act that Congress came up with was referred to as the Nationalization Act, which had some legitimacy to it because it was termed nationalization. And if you go into the USC Code, Title 8, it deals with citizenship in the Nationality Act, or the Nationalization Act, which in its origin, they were setting up to deal with that. But they still were, their hands were still tied because they were still under the program themselves, where they was only dealing with portions of the Nationalization Act. It still wasn't pertaining to the Asiatic North America. It was still pertaining to themselves. And then the second Nationalization Act that they came out with, they changed the term nationalization and they called it the Naturalization Act. And that's when they was under the auspices of the 14th Amendment. So we got to get into that, understand the transition and the timeline of what occurred with Congress. So Congress was compromised the whole time and never really came up with a lawful uniform rule for naturalization or nationalization. They didn't never deal with the two according to law. They only dealt with it from a foreign-born subject perspective. And when they brought somebody into the so-called citizenship through naturalization, it was through the U.S. 14th Amendment. So now what Moors have done, some of them, they look at the term naturalization as being de jure in nature or constitutional, which it is. The term naturalization is constitutional, but it only pertains to a certain status of people that was not intended to be used for what you would call natives or aboriginal indigenous or natural born citizens or natives. Even though we don't like using that term, I'm just using it so that everybody can understand. But for Moors that were born here and is tied to this soil, naturalization is a contradiction for that particular status. And we must understand, as Moors, we should not be using the term naturalization, especially under their regulations. If we want to use it for someone that is born in another soil and they come and take citizenship here, now we can play with that term and redefine it according to natural law, if we would like to. But for those who have used Naturalization Act to say that they're nationalizing their own people that were already born here, that becomes an oxymoron. That process will only not just put you back in the system, but technically it does not change the status at all because you never left the system. So it's just like changing positions, but it doesn't change the status. You're still part of the same corporation, you just got another position in that same corporation. but it does not make you a citizen of the land. It doesn't put you into the sovereignty of the land, and it doesn't put you in the natural law or natural person bracket of the land. And it definitely doesn't nationalize you as being a free national citizen or a free national being. Those who are promoting that idea are misinformed, or either that or they're part of the program. Islam? The Naturalization Act is another program under the 14th Amendment. Civil rights. The Civil Rights Act itself is under the 14th Amendment program. So when you start hearing civil rights liberties or civil rights leaders, with some of your leaders today, back to that conversation, some of your leaders today are under the civil rights movement. Anytime you hear that term, that's also putting you right back to the 14th Amendment. So that's not something that we're even interested in. It has no bearings on what has to be done to proclaim our citizenship here in the land, or to proclaim our sovereignty. It has nothing to do with that. These processes will only, once again, keep you in the system. I won't even say put you back in the system, because you never left. The only way you can decode the program and leave the system is to proclaim your free national name according to the rules and usages of the Moorish Temple of America. The de jure Moorish Temple of America, don't get that twisted. Because even some of the programs that some of these Moorish temples have are still not right and exact. And their program would only keep you in the system as well. So a lot of Moors in the temple and outside the temple have not properly proclaimed their nationality. They never left the system. Regardless of what they say to you, what they wear, what they have on their head, legally, status-wise, they never left the system. It's a program. It's the matrix. So when we get into proclaiming our free national name, that becomes a confusing process, because everybody has a different idea or interpretation on what needs to be done pertaining to that subject. But it's very simple. It's just that our leaders, even on this side, have sold us out where they wasn't even dealing with the correct process. Because Cohen Pro and the agency took control of the seats at Moorish Science Temple. And although that they were under the auspices of the charter of the Moorish Science Temple, and they put Drew Ali's picture on the wall, it looks like, it appears that they're following the program that Drew Ali set down for us, but they're really not. They're truth and falsehood, strange you mix, just like anything else. They're no different from any of the other leaders, Farrakhan and whoever. Only difference is they're wearing a turban and a fez, and they're talking about Noble Drew Ali, but they're still keeping you in the same status as Farrakhan is keeping his people in. This is why we have to be more scientists. Because once we quickly identify falsehood and notwithstanding acts, we expose it, call it for what it is, and we follow the right way, the right process. And it's very hard to deal with this, because every day I get phone calls from people who are confused on what the process is supposed to be. It's because everybody has a different interpretation. Very simple. It's not my process. I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything different from what Drew Ali told us to do. Follow the instructions. It's very simple.
Can you name some of the processes?
Pardon myself, I didn't hear that.
Can you name any of the processes that we have to go through to proclaim our nationality?
You said name the process for nationality?
Yeah, can you name a couple of processes? Is there like different processes, or is there one
Yes.
process?
All right. Because of the proclamation of 1865 I was telling you about, the oath to amnesty is key here. Because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali made a statement in his oral statement. He said, being born here does not make you a citizen. He said, one has to proclaim their free national name and religion to be recognized as a citizen. So we're going to explain that. We're going to deal with interpretation here. The oath to amnesty consisted of a oath of allegiance, or are you familiar with an oath of office that police officers and judges have to take in order to come into office?
Yes.
Everyone familiar with that?
Yeah.
All right, Islam. So within the wording of that, that's very similar to to what Abraham Lincoln put in place, referred to as the oath to amnesty. And it basically says that, Nature El Bey takes an oath to support, defend the Constitution of the United States of America. I do solemnly swear or affirm that these statements above is true, correct, to the best of my knowledge, etc. Then they have a witness, a seal, notarized or whatever it is, goes at the bottom, and then that gets filed for the public record. Very simple. Because the concept that we hold the judges to, and anybody who has an oath of office has to take an oath to uphold and support the Constitution of the United States, because they're claiming a high role of governmental representation. So in order to have the trust of people, they have to be down by open allegiance in order to hold these offices. But that does not just apply to the government officials, that also applies to the citizen. So in all actuality, every citizen is supposed to have an oath of office. Just by being a citizen of the land, we hold, this is an office. We hold a public trust. We hold a trust to each other. So the concept becomes the same. If one of our own people don't have an oath of office or never took an oath to support the Constitution, therefore they can't be trusted. Doesn't deal with emotion, it deals with law. So when the Prophet Noble Drew Ali put his program together, known as the Moorish Divine and National Movement, he put together these simple affirmations and statements of facts and things that we use today. You might know it by different ways. But proclamation, declarations of nationality, and even some Moors use what they call a baptism certificate. It's worded different ways, but these are basically affidavits that's produced by our leadership within our temples or our Moorish organization that is written in the same nature as an oath of office, or I'm sorry, not an oath of office, an oath of amnesty. Is written the same way. It's just tailored according to Moorish rules and uses. Has Moorish terminology in it, but it's pretty much an oath of amnesty document, or what we call a statement of fact, stating that you, the natural person, the Moorish American, are taking an oath or affirming to uphold the constitutional standard of the United States of America, and it also has some Moorish verbiage in there, and whatever your Moorish Act 6, some, like I said, different Moors put different verbiage in it. But that's the first step to becoming a citizen of the United States, is by taking an oath or allegiance to uphold the Constitution. Once you sign that document or that affidavit, that's an affirmation of fact, that has to be filed in your local government, i.e. your county recorder's office. The county recorder's office is your public filing office for the citizens of that particular county who domicile in that particular body politic, that government, known as the county government. The citizens in that government file their documents on the county level, because that first government, that's your immediate government, is the county government. The state came after the county. So don't forget that. A lot of Moors like to go to the state for recognition and get a state seal known as what they call an apostille or apostille, but that's no different from a state notary. But they're not filing your affidavit, so there's a difference. It's just a state notary. In order to properly put your status on record and your oath on record, you must file it with the county recorder's office. That's the proper way to proclaim your nationality, for starters.
Now, what about in the instance of counties being dissolved or counties taking the position of the corporate state and not filing documents and things of that nature because they gave up their posts?
Islam. Well, that's another issue, you know, and that's what we have. That's what the real work of the leadership is right now, is working on that situation. Because years ago, they would follow documents with no problem, you know, when Moors were pretty much getting the hang of what has to be done. Because remember, I said our leadership has sold us out. So for years, through the past generations, Moors wasn't really proclaiming their nationality officially. They wasn't bum rushing the county recorder's office. So therefore, the county recorder's office was not alarmed on what we're talking about right now. Over the past, I would say 15 years or so, Moors have been rapidly bum rushing that office and pushing that process harder and harder. And Moors have, you know, multiplying through status. Therefore, the volume of Moors going to the county recorters is just in abundance, where they start to be alarmed now. So now the state has came in and told the county recorders not to file these documents anymore on behalf of these Moors because of the legal impact that filing these documents does in government. It straight just puts a monkey wrench in government, in the process of government. And I don't even want to say government, because that's not true, but in the de facto government, it puts a monkey wrench in. So it hangs up the courtrooms, it hangs up the tax department, it just hangs up all departments of government by Moors being active on this political level. So now the state came in on a higher level and is trying to block us from proclaiming our nationality the correct way. And this is why I'm trying to express to Moors, this is the correct way. My proof of that is the fact that they don't want you to do it anymore. If what I was saying was so much wrong, then they will be allowing you to do it with no problem. But the fact is now that they're blocking you from it is proof that there's something within that process that they're hiding. So I don't want Moors to get discouraged from that because they're having issues from doing it. That's telling us to put more attention to that level in that area. So the fact that they don't want to do it means we got to go back to the drawing board. We have to find strategic ways to force them to do it. Do not look for another way to get it done, because there is no other way lawful to do it. Because that's the only filing office. Motor vehicle, Division of Motor Vehicle, is another replacement of a filing office from the statutory process that they came up with. That's why they pushed the driver's license as a national ID, because they use the database in the registry of the Division of Motor Vehicle as their supreme filing office now. So now they force you to go through motor vehicle to put your name in the system. Let's say, for example, say a person became out here at 17. 17 is the so-called legal age you can now drive. So now you become 17, but even say if you don't want a driver's license right now, just to get what they call legal ID, they got a regular non-driver's ID that they push citizens to get. Which is just as valid as a driver's license, only for the purposes of identification. So even if you don't quote-unquote drive or don't own an automobile, they still force you to go to motor vehicle just to get an identification. And if you don't have neither one of the two, they're still looking at you like you're not a citizen. So my point is, motor vehicle is serving many different avenues for the people outside of what you know as a driver's license. It's serving as a national registry for the state corporation to function within. So when you file or you go down there to get a non-driver's ID, they're using the probative value of whatever information that they're asking you for as a birth certificate, social security card, whatever credentials they're asking for to validate that you are a citizen. They now take that and give you an ID from the Division of Motor Vehicle, and now that ID is good anywhere throughout the country as the highest form of identification. They don't even accept a birth certificate as identification in most places. But they accept a non-photo driver's license from the Division of Motor Vehicle as valid. That should tell you something. So our issue is turning the county recorder's office back into the constitutional office that it was set up to be, and not looking for other ways to go around it or substitute it, because 9 times out of 10, the substitute is going to be unconstitutional. So then it becomes discretionary if they want to acknowledge that or not. So the thing is, we're electing people according to the Constitution to do a job. They're not doing their job, but we're letting them off the hook by looking for other ways to go around them not doing their job. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So part of what Drew Ali was telling us to do was enforce the Constitution. That does not mean just go out and exercise the right to travel. Although it does mean that, but it's not just that. Holding your governmental officials to their responsibilities is a part of enforcing the Constitution. So that means that if people are being elected to do something, we need to make sure that they do what they're elected to do. If they don't do it, then that means it's breach of contract. And then we should bring them up on charges for that. That's when you form a plebiscite, you form class action lawsuits against people who say they're going to do something but don't do it. That's what lawsuits are for. But we need to raise our census, our citizenship census, where that forms the plebiscite, so we'll have the numbers to address these departments of government. And until then, they're not going to carry it out because they don't fear us in numbers. Because as long as there's only several people going down there and raising the issue, they don't feel that they got an obligation to do it. Because they're looking at you like, well, you know, what are the repercussions behind the grand sheet coming down there with a document and we not following? They're looking at it as they'd rather take their chances for pissing you off and not doing it versus doing it, and now you can form some type of legal action, or you can now protect your birthright by exercising your right to travel, by not paying taxes and doing some things that they don't want you to do. Now you got a better chance of upholding your constitutional rights and protections because you proclaimed your nationality. Versus if they can block you from doing that, they still got leave on you. And they still can hold you to them phony contracts that you got by way of the 14th Amendment. So it's a way for them to prolong the servitude is by blocking you from proclaiming your nationality properly.
No.
Where you forced to keep going down there and showing that phony ID, saying that you Johnny Jones. As long as they force you to keep using that ID, they got jurisdiction over you. That's why they don't want you to do it.
Now, what about the process of putting the particular so-called officials or trustees on notice of your proclamation if you don't have a county to file in?
Meaning that a county doesn't exist there, or
Yeah,
you're saying
like-
the county won't file it, period?
Yeah, the county doesn't exist.
If the county, like say, here in this portion of North America, every state has counties. So I'm not familiar with what agencies that you have out there that is supposed to have that same constitutional fiduciary obligation.
Right, so that's supposed to be the county, but when the cities took over, the major cities, like in rural areas, there's county still. There's still sheriffs there and stuff like that. But
Alright.
in the city locations, there's no county. It's just the city where they file
The
house.
city clerk's
Yeah.
office.
The city clerk's office, right? Yeah.
All right,
The
now,
city clerk's
yeah.
office is the jurisdiction that sort of
City
says
hall.
they're dealing with that stuff.
City Hall.
All right, well, here's what you do. Two things. It's the same here too. Even though they have counties in every state. But in the major city areas, what they do is they change positions. Same thing that you're saying, where the city clerk's office will handle certain things that the county clerk's office is supposed to do. And the same thing here where, like say for example, a registered of deeds office.
Right.
You should write that down for those that's not familiar with that. The Register of Deeds office is the same place where you're supposed to file your proclamation document.
Oh yeah.
In the rural areas, the county clerk's office has a Register of Deeds office in it. But in the major cities, the city clerk's office will handle the Register of Deeds portion of what they're supposed to do. If that's where they say you have to go for the Register of Deeds, then you're going to have to go to the city clerk's office to do that. Wherever they file a deed at is where you file your affidavit at.
Okay, now with filing it and with that jurisdiction that is supposed to be doing the county job, but then they're doing other stuff as well. Filing it with them is not going to admit the corporate city jurisdiction.
No, because you're filing it under threat, duress, and coercion. Meaning that you have no other avenue to file it at. If they change hats or they change fiduciary obligations and did it through the city jurisdiction, don't forget, even the county clerk's office now has submitted to the jurisdiction of the state government. So the counties are under the jurisdiction of the state anyway. So even if the county do file it, the county is still under the jurisdiction of the state. It's still under the U.S.
Right.
So it don't matter what agency do it, all agencies have capitulated and became state agencies. Just like the sheriff. The sheriff used to be the supreme officer of the state, chief commander of the state from the law enforcement perspective. They changed that. He's still a sheriff, but the sheriff has a different definition now. So now the sheriff is subordinate to the state troopers.
Right.
Remember, going back to the old Dukes of Hazzard form, sitcom, whatever show that was. They were showing you right in there the jurisdiction of the sheriff.
Right.
They changed all of that. So it's not even the same, the sheriff does not have the same constitutional obligation that he did years ago. Because the state came in and made the sheriff subordinate to them. So now the state troopers got jurisdiction and the marshals got jurisdiction, and the sheriff, he's subordinate. Well, the only thing the sheriff really do here is deal with
Evictions and stuff.
real estate and stuff like that, and evictions, and he runs the county jails. He's basically a correctional officer. That's the only thing the sheriff does. But the sheriff is the only lawful officer of the state.
So being that the sheriff has been relegated to an officer that deals with inmates or whatever, right? County jail, etc.
Correctional.
Correctional officer. Yeah.
That's the only thing he is at this moment, is a correctional officer.
Right. Okay. So being that he's in that jurisdiction now,
Mhm.
his initial jurisdiction of being the commanding officer for law enforcement is only it could only be exercised if more step up and use him in that position.
Yes, you have to expose the truth behind his office. And remember, there's one sheriff for the county. That's the elective sheriff. Sheriffs are elected. So once again, in order to have influence as Moors, to get the respect in the area you at, you have to show them you know what you're talking about, and show the courage that you're willing to stand for what you're talking about. So you have to be present for when he's elected. You have to even go down there and make him aware. You have to almost remind them of what they're supposed to do. Just don't take it for granted that they know what they're supposed to do. Because they've been doing what they're doing for so long that a lot of them don't even know. Or they forgot because no one else holds them to this.
Right.
But this is what I do. I got affidavits that I put out there. I notified the sheriff. I even went and had a meeting with the sheriff. There's only one sheriff. And what he does or she does is deputizes agents to work on their behalf. So everybody you see riding around with a sheriff car is not the sheriff. They're sheriff deputies, where they have permission to act on behalf of the sheriff under his supervision. But your argument is with the sheriff personally because he or she is the only one that's elected according to the Constitution. Once you get the sheriff under control, then they will notify their deputies on how to deal with the Moorish community.
Yeah.
So one thing that I did was I raised the issue to the local police officers, the local police agents of the municipality, that the police officers are just agents for the municipality. They're quasi-jurisdiction. They have no lawful jurisdiction in the county. So because a Moorish American has a diplomatic status, then the regular police officers have no jurisdiction to even arrest or detain a Moorish American or any sovereign at that level. The only one that has jurisdiction or arresting powers in the county is the sheriff. The sheriff is the only one that can lawfully arrest you or detain you or haul you to a holding facility, i.e. jail. The police officers do not have jurisdiction to do that. But you have to notify the ones that's in control or in command of those officers, i.e. the chief of police, the captain, and the deputy sheriff. You have to have meeting with them. You have to send them affidavits to this effect and notify them before someone gets detained or gets stopped by the police. So once this occurs, a disclaimer is already out there on how they're supposed to deal with us. A lot of them have to be taught how to deal with us. They don't know. Don't assume that they know the procedure. They really don't. They were never taught this in the police academy. So you have to go there and you don't just have a conversation with them, put it in writing. They have it's a book called The Treatise of the Duties of a Sheriff. It's an old book. I have it. I'll give you the information on it where you can try to order it.
Yeah.
But that explains the lawful duties of the sheriff. And it backs up what I'm saying. You can take copies of that, excerpts of that, and you can send that straight to the sheriff's department and let them know. Yes, we know that the state has gave them another rule of action on what to do, but it don't matter. You can't supersede what the Constitution says. So now you put them in a position on, are you going to take your orders from the state or are you going to take your orders from the Constitution? Let them put their foot in the mouth. You take the pick. Because if you say you're going to take your orders from the state and not the Constitution, then that means you breached your oath of office. Because I have an oath that you said, that you swore under oath to support and uphold the Constitution of the United States and perform your duties according to it. But you just said you're going to take your orders from the state. So as long as you put them into that type of box, you got them. Now you can bring them up on charges. And once you expose that to the other citizens outside the Moorish community, then they'll think twice about electing them, because now you're informing them that the sheriff is not doing their job. Now you're informing them that the county clerk is not doing their job. But the problem is the citizens outside those doors right there. There's several people inside the temple right now, but everybody in the temple is in agreement to what we're talking about.
Yes.
But it's only a handful of us. We can't make the difference just within this room. We have to educate everybody walking past these doors right now on what we're saying. So the real mission becomes educating the people at large.
Say it again, brother.
So once the average citizen agrees with what we're saying, now you got thousands of people saying the same thing.
Right.
Now that forces them to make a difference down at the elections.
Right on.
If 3,000 people vote against the sheriff at the next elections, now that sheriff is in trouble. Now his elections is subject to be changed because there's so many people voting against him. Now what we do is educate other people on what they're supposed to be doing once they get in that office, and if they don't want to do that, then you don't elect them either. You gotta sue them.
What's in the book? What's the name of the sheriff book again?
It's called a treatise on the duty of the sheriff. I don't have it here with me, but I'll get you the exact information so that you can look it up. A treatise on the duty of the sheriff.
Okay. Anybody got questions?
But once again, the leaders, I understood where you were going earlier, and I know your mission as far as exposing these so-called black leaders. But within that, I think we definitely need to put more pressure and expose the elected leaders.
So that's what I was just gonna ask too now. So, the exposing of the elected leaders. If their position is unconstitutional, is it for us to still challenge them? Because if they're unconstitutional, doesn't mean that their office is dissolved or empty. So like when we say expose the leaders, or what qualifies a leader other than the black leaders, like the elected leaders? What qualifies those individuals? Because like here we have people would consider a mayor an elected leader, or they might consider
Yeah, let me correct that, because the mayor, once again, a mayor is pretty much a board of director. He or she only acts on the behalf of a municipality. A municipality is a quasi-government. Once again,
right.
It's really not a governmental entity. So the mayor is not a constitutional office because the corporation or the municipality really holds no constitutional obligation. So a mayor is not appointed or elected according to the Constitution at all. It's only appointed based on the corporate interest of the corporation called the municipality. You see the difference?
Right.
The government for the municipality is really the county government. But the county government supports the municipality because it takes weight off of them, so that they don't have to come into every municipality and do the job there. So that they use municipality to do its own job. You see what occurs?
Yeah. So so they're creating like this layering perspective that we have to deal with all these different levels of so-called government, where some of them aren't even official. They're just doing the job that somebody else sanctioned them to do because they don't want to do it themselves?
Well, it's kind of strategic on what the state did, because the state took all of the independent agencies, I'm going to use the term independent, or sovereign agencies, that was already self-sufficient before the state became incorporated. And what the state did was they forced all of the sub-agencies to now become an agency under the jurisdiction of the state of. So like, for example, New Jersey is the Republic of New Jersey is referred to as New Jersey State Republic. That's the constitutional state pertaining to New Jersey under the Republic form of government. But when the state became incorporated, they changed the name or the wording to the state of New Jersey. Just giving you an example of how it works here.
Right.
So now all of the agencies that's within the geographical area in the state of New Jersey became, prepositional speaking, an agency of the state of New Jersey. So now you have the county, like say for example, the county where the municipality where I'm at is referred to as Asbury Park. It's called the city of Asbury Park. That's the municipality or the city. Now, the city of Asbury Park is under the jurisdiction of the county of Monmouth County. So Monmouth County is the county jurisdiction over the city of Asbury Park. Now, the county of Monmouth is under the jurisdiction of the state of New Jersey and all its agencies. So now anything with the county has jurisdiction over everything within this county under the regulation under the state of New Jersey. So the state can come in at any time and regulate what goes on within the county. For example, on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we have what we call state troopers here. They're the police officers of the state of New Jersey. They refer to as state troopers. The weekends, the state troopers have jurisdiction over the city of Asbury Park. Only on the weekends. They can come in on Friday and they can pull over people, traffic violation. They say they check for inspection stickers or whatever. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they ride through the neighborhoods and they pull over people. They're not even from around here. But they work directly for the state. They have no allegiance to city of Asbury Park. They have no allegiance to the county of Monmouth. They work directly for the state. They have jurisdiction over the whole state. But my point is, the county is supposed to have jurisdiction over its own affairs, where the state is not supposed to intercede with any affairs in that county, unless the county of Monmouth needs assistance. The state is supposed to be only there for the assistance of the people, to give added assistance to whatever they can't resolve or handle within its own powers. It's not to over-control them or to intercede with any of their affairs. Same thing with the centralized government known as your federal government. The federal government is not supposed to intercede with any of the affairs of the state. The state is supposed to be sovereign. The state is supposed to be the supreme jurisdiction over its own affairs. But when they came up with the federal government, what they did was they took the sovereignty away from the states. So this is why they had that whole issue with the Civil War. Because the states, which was mainly the European slaveholders at that time, they had a problem with the federal government coming in and taking away their powers. So they went to war against the federal government. Because they knew that to capitulate or to agree to let the federal government become the supreme jurisdiction, will limit what they can do with their slaves and how they participate within their state affairs. So it's a domino effect. Everybody is subject to somebody. It's the game that's being played right now. So the state took over all its affairs, but once again, the federal government can come within the state and take over whatever the state want to do. So everybody holds allegiance or chain of command to somebody else. But they all fictitious. They all are unconstitutional. Our problem as Moors, understanding that we are playing a fictitious game here, we can't change it overnight. So really, what we're doing is trying to, once again, form this plebiscite that I'm talking about, where we can make a difference down the line. It's not an overnight fix. So when brothers and sisters come into this, they need to be instructed and told right away, it's not a quick fix to this. You're going to come in and there's going to be issues. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be roadblocks. That's something that we signing up for. You got to sign up. It's like going to war. You know it's going to be strife. It's a possibility, like the soldiers are told, when they ship them out and deport them, it's a possibility that you might not come home. So you just got to tell your family what you signed up for and, hope you got the support, and you just got to roll. And that's the same position that we got to take in this movement. When you sign up for this, it's not a walk in the park. We're going to war. It's just that some of us take that position with courage and some of us don't. Some of us are really cowards and we're just looking for some type of protection and we don't want to do no work. We want everything to be fixed for us. And those type of people are really not going to make it in this move.
Now, could you speak about that with regard to Moors coming into this information, coming into the movement, and what their obligation should be, where their allegiance should lie, being Moorish American?
Islam. Once again, the Prophet encouraged and instructed us to stand for the enforcement of the Constitution. And regardless of what your religious beliefs are and how you want to live, that's your prerogative. But one thing that we have to agree is mandatory is that we have to support and uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. Because the minute we oppose the Constitution, we disqualify ourselves as being citizens of the United States. And this is very important. So in order to enforce it properly, we have to study the Constitution. We have to have classes on the Constitution, which I know we do here, you do there. We're not challenging that. But meaning for instruction purposes, outside of your classroom setting, you have to go home and practice and study the Constitution within your own home front. Remember, government starts at home. It starts from the house. Remember, back in the day, you didn't have governments as what we have today. You had villages, you had tribes, and they tell you the village starts at home. It's how you raise your children and how you conduct your affairs at home determines the type of community. Because mostly all communities have the same vibration to it. People move together, they live near each other, they pretty much got the same mindset. And that's what constitutes collectively a community. If it's so-called a ghetto area, especially like just use the term, and I'm not trying to bring anybody down, but just dealing with the reality of it, we got what we call projects. But because they segregate people and put them into these low-income housing communities, known as projects and other type of communities, apartments and low-income type of communities, the status of the people are pretty much the same, The financial security of the people is pretty much the same. The spirituality of the people are pretty much the same. So they pretty much form themselves families and like minds within the same community. Versus the projects, or it could be your neighborhood or your street. The houses in your community are pretty much in the same price bracket. You know, everything is segregated, and that's the communities we live in. We say the rich people live in rich areas. We say the poor people live in the poor areas. But it's really the mental state of the people that we're really talking about that settles for this. And that's something that we're getting later. That has everything to do with nationality as well. Because as we proclaim our nationality, we start working on our economic security and our structure to where we can better ourselves and better our finances, better our living. We get better homes, and that's another subject to be talked about at a later time. But that's in the process, or in the making, or in the agenda of what Moorish American really represent. But we have to start off at the bottom, and that's first by becoming a better citizen. By becoming a citizen, period. Because like I explained, we wasn't even recognized as citizens. So moving forward, when we have this segregated community, we're put there based on ethnic group, we're put there based on economic stability, and we're put there based on the apartheid. And when I say the apartheid, that's dealing with the so-called government's benefits and programs that they have for the people. In order for them to accept these programs, they have to accept the whole package of the program, as far as welfare. Here they have what they call Section 8. They have Family First. And I don't know if you're familiar with these terms, but they're all programs of the apartheid or the welfare system. Low-income housing. People paying $5 a month for rent. You know, that's under what they call Section 8, but it's still a welfare program. And a lot of our single women have no choice to take advantage of these programs because they're single mothers, they got a few children, and the fathers are not around, the fathers are not paying child support, so they have to accept these programs from the system. And by accepting these programs, they got them right under this 14th Amendment bracket that they in. There's a way out of that. I can also explain later. But once they accept this, they're not likely to hear about this information that we're talking about, because part of the nature of what we're saying is being independent. When you say the word sovereignty, what you're really saying is independent. So we're teaching our people and asking them to be independent. So imagine walking through the projects right now and going door to door and just asking the people to be independent. See what they say to you. They don't want to listen to that. Because they like the $5 a month rent. Some pay $100 a month rent. Some people don't pay no rent. All they got to do is pay for their utilities. Some people not even paying their utilities. You understand, there's different programs with welfare. And the average person, if their mental state is not an independent mind or a sovereign mind, they don't want to go against the grain. So they're not interested in what we're talking about, because their very nature of what we're talking about is really being independent. So that's not their cup of tea. So it's another thing you got to realize when you're asking somebody to consider this movement. Really think about what you're really asking them to do, and you'll understand a little bit better their opposition against it. It's not about that they don't understand that they're not black. It's really not. A child can really understand that. They know that Smith, Jones, and Johnson is really not their last name. They put up the opposition because they're not really ready to be independent. They don't have the courage to do that. It's because of post-traumatic slave syndrome. So you're beating them in the head thinking that they really don't understand that they're not black, and black is a color, and black is not a nation of people, and you really trying to hit them in the head with all this information to try to convince them that they're not Negro, black, and colored, but really, we're missing the point. It's really not about that. They understood it when you first told them that. It's just a game that they're playing with you, where they're really not telling you the truth why they don't want to accept that. That's why the prophet said, if you can't convince them that they're not Negro, black, and colored, there's nothing else to say to them. The reason why there's nothing else to say to them is because they get the point, and they're telling you that they still want to be a part of the program. So that, like Drew said, either with me or you with them. Same thing that they said in the Matrix movie. You're either part of us or you're part of them. There's no other way to look at it. And we have to make that determination when we speak to people. If we can't convince them, we move on, because really they're agents, and they're really enemies to the cause of uplifting their own people. And justice will catch them if you don't want to be around them at a curve. I know it's hard to say that about people we love, but really that's the dynamic to this. Islam, you had a question for me.
Anybody else got? With regard to you were talking about Duali's claim that if we can't teach them, there's nothing else that we can really tell them. What about the people that are riding the fence? Like the people who know what this is and are a bit skeptical for whatever reason. Like what lessons could we use to draw the people who are swaying to this but aren't inspired enough, let's say?
Well, the old scripture says, my people perish from the lack of knowledge. And part of the stagnation from some people, remember you got different psyches of people out there, different mindsets. Some of the people's stagnation comes just from the lack of information. Some people are good-hearted, wanting to do good and want to make a change, just don't have the proper knowledge and information to do so. So you still, if somebody is encouraged enough, that you see somebody has courage, but just manipulate that courage in the wrong direction, that they're willing to rock the boat, but they're just doing it the wrong way, then you can quickly recognize that person has a rebel spirit, and it just takes the proper information for them to get on the right track. Drew Ali made a statement when he was informed. He says that, he knows where every member is at along the way. And I always use that because as being a leader, as being a grand sheik, or whatever have you, we should be able to know exactly what the stagnation is of everybody that's really a student, a member, or somebody that we're trying to help. We should be able to recognize quickly what their dilemma is. And at that point, you should be able to make the determination whether they're, straddling the fence because they're scared or they're afraid, or is it because they don't have the proper information, or if they're even an agent. It's the leadership should be advanced to a level where we should be detect what the issue is, and no different from the doctor, because a grand sheik is also a doctor. We should be able to diagnose whatever issues that the patients might have, so to speak. And that becomes the obligation of every member. Once they go out into the community, start teaching people themselves, they become the grand sheik, they become the doctor, they become the leader, the head of or whatever title at that moment, because now they got to act in that same capacity. So they have to quickly be able to detect what the issue is themselves. They got to be able to troubleshoot what the problem is. And by talking to somebody, you should know, like, for example, a person starts talking to you and they coming from a Christian background or belief system. then you know right away what their indoctrination is all about. And then you should be able to use their lessons. You should be able to use the scriptures, and you should be able to use the Bible at that point as their remedy, as they dosage to help them in their language. Because as long as you come to them in your own language, or you try to come from them from the Quran or the Moorish temple, they're going to immediately reject you, because that's not what they accept. They have accepted the Bible or Christianity as their Lord and Savior and their salvation and all this. So you have to come to them in their language to help them. Same thing if you're talking to a member of the Nation of Islam or a Sunni Muslim or whatever. Same thing. You know what their indoctrination is about. So you wouldn't come to them from the Bible. You wouldn't come to them from the Moorish temple of America. You have to come from them from the Quran of Mecca to try to help them and bring them up to speed to nationality or whatever lesson you're trying to put upon them. Same thing if you're talking to a Jew or whatever background a person have. You have to be able to know a little bit about everything to be able to reach people in your community, because our community is so diverse with mixed spirits and mixed indoctrination out there. You know, and also, once again, dealing with the agencies of COINTELPRO, they are in so many of our institutions. They're in all of our institutions. Let me clear that up. So because they're in all our institutions, you got to know when you're talking to COINTELPRO. And they could be right in the Moorish temple walking the feds on saying Islam on Sunday, which they might be in appearance of being your brother or sister, which they are your brother and sister, but they also could be agent and a part of the program there to manipulate you. You got to be able to tell them right away. So you got to deal with what they will call intuition and instinct, and that's all a part of raising your vibration and becoming an adder, where you can be able to save time and energy, and how you even teach people and how you deal with the people at large, even government officials. Even if this works all the way down to a traffic stop. You understand? So you got to show them there's a difference in vibration of Negro, black, and colored versus being a Moorish American pre-national being. There's not just a difference in language, but there's a whole difference in vibration and psyche with that. And this was what Drew was speaking about when he said this speak intelligent tone, and you will receive a favorable reply, because they were glad to see me bring you out of darkness into the marvelous light. Remember, he also made the statement, he says that if you doubt my redemption process was right for my people, he said, go to those that know law. He said, example, among the officials in your government. He said, go down to City Hall. He said, ask them under an intelligent tone. And then they will give you that favorable reply. You can't just go talk to your uncle, your aunt, your father, your mother, or your citizens down the street, because they're not educated on this level. They don't really know law. So they really can't give you an intelligent reply on this matter. You know, so throwing that around a little bit, I'm just giving you something on how we can make a change from our immediate communication and salvation, and also how we can make a change in the public. It really starts with self. You know, until we redeem self, we can't redeem else. And no one's going to respect you or respect me until they see we made a change within self.
Wow. The Aquarian Gospel and the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple. Clearing up the confusion between those two books. Was there a direct connection to that book from Noble Drew Ali, or is that just common information to esoteric-minded individuals that is accessible? Because people have the perspective that, Levi Dowling, quote unquote, got that from some records, Akashic records or whatever like that. Not that he went and studied with under people to get that information.
Remember, Levi Dow was a scholar, and just like Noble Drew Ali was a scholar, and they were both. Drew Ali only wrote certain chapters in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple. This is why on the front cover it says divinely prepared by Noble Drew Ali. He didn't say he wrote the whole book. And this is where the confusion comes in at. On page 3 of the Holy Quran, it explains that the reason why these lessons have not been known because the Muslims of India, Egypt, Palestine held these lessons back from the outside world. And it said for the first time in ages, they released these secrets and put them into the hands of the Muslims of America. So that's a code, and what that's telling us is that the lessons in the Holy Quran, with the exceptions of the ones that Drew Ali wrote himself, are ancient lessons. They've been around for ages. If you go into the lessons, it speaks about the Hindus of India. It talks about the Brahmins. It goes into the ancient lessons of the Hindus and the Brahmas. You're going back into other time periods and ancient lessons over 2,000 years ago. So those lessons are ancient. They have been there for ages. So Drew Ali couldn't have wrote them in this era of time. And Levi, some people say that Drew Ali got those lessons from Levi Down, and he didn't, because it precedes this generation period. Both Levi Down and Drew Ali both came up in the late 1800s. So their time span was not far apart. But the key to it is those lessons, neither one of them are responsible for writing. And Drew Ali even put in the front on page 3 that these lessons are ancient. What Drew Ali is responsible for is, for the first time in ages, that those lessons have been given to us in North America. That's what Drew Ali is responsible for, is exposing those lessons to us. Because those are the same lessons that they use in the ancient Egypt mystery schools. So you got these high Masonic organizations that also use a portion of those lessons, but they only expose it to chosen initiate within their fraternal organization. Drew Ali knew that. And even the Masonic organizations will tell you that that's all Eastern knowledge that they have. They tell you that Masonry came from Egypt. So they acknowledge that the lessons that they have even came from Egypt. So the whole concept of what Drew Ali is trying to tell us is that these lessons are Eastern in nature. They're all ancient. Now, what Drew Ali did was he took a compilation of those ancient lessons and he added to it. And he put some modern day lessons, or he put lessons together in the Quran that was in our language that we can understand. And he also put things in there that was relevant to this era of time that we need to do or deal with now, pertaining to nationality and the divine origin of the Asiatic nation and things like that. Because those are things that pertain to what we need to do now. The other lessons, the other 40 chapters in the Quran that was already ancient, that deals with more of your spirituality, of what it takes for man to unfold into his God self, or into his higher self. That's ancient. So that has been the same and does not need to be changed from era of time to era of time. Those are spiritual lessons that all the masters and all the prophets actually taught and followed. That's a blueprint that all the masters dealt with. That's why it's in our Holy Quran, because it doesn't need to be changed. It's just worded certain words have been manipulated and changed to best suit this era of time. The chapters that he added to it that best deals with us as Asiatic to North America is put there to help us be better or understand our Moorish American heritage and how to proclaim our Moorish American heritage, the necessity to do that. That's been added to the Holy Quran just for modern day application, which you're not going to find those lessons anywhere else because Drew Ali actually wrote that himself. So he added to it. So together, the 48 chapters that's in the Quran constitutes a complete process that's needed for the Asiatic North America to unfold. That's why he put it together that way. He didn't need to change a bunch of things. He added to it. And some people want to disqualify Drew. A lot of, and mostly leaders, want to disqualify Drew Ali by saying that the Quran is a compilation of this text, that text, and he stole it from this person, as to say that he's not real or he's not who you think he is. But they're just using that to try to disqualify him because they want to disqualify the whole concept of you proclaiming your nationality and you even following what you are as what he's telling you is falsehood. So you got to immediately recognize that the COINTELPRO was in those statements. Truth don't change or pass away. So regardless of who wrote it is what I tell people, the truth within it you should just accept, and regardless of who said it. And once you understand the truth, then you will automatically understood what the prophet was actually dealing with, and it wouldn't even be about him anymore. Drew Ali is only an icon or a role model in our eyesight because he knew something that we don't know. And he's our leader. He's instructing us to follow a blueprint that we are not aware of. So that's why we redundantly and repeatedly keep talking about Drew Ali and keep saying Drew Ali, is because the structure and the pattern that he laid down is right and exact for our people. That is the blueprint, and there has not been another proven method or program by any other leader that came after Drew Ali to this day. When we get people to try to duplicate it, try to replace it, people try to say that's an old method that y'all following somebody, an old program that's 100 years old. People say everything, but there has not been another proven method in the past 100 years. And that's a fact. And there has not been another leader that came along outside of the leadership of the Moorish community that's even talking the same talk. So that tells me that either like for example, you think that Farrakhan is not aware of Noble Drew Ali? Do you think Jesse Jackson is not aware of Noble Drew Ali? Do you even think that Martin Luther King was unaware of Noble Drew Ali? Do you think that Haj Malik was unaware of Noble Drew Ali? Intelligent as these people were and are, and after all this internet going on now, back then you had an excuse. The internet wasn't popular. But now we all over YouTube. We're all in the community, walking in every major city. You mean to tell me that these people know everything about what's going on, but they don't know nothing about what the Moors stand for? They don't know nothing about Noble Drew Ali? You examine that. Just talking, not you, but you plural. Examine that. There's something in there that is not being told. People in your community know about Drew Ali and know about the Moors. Then how come these leaders and these millionaires don't know about it? The fact is they do know about it, but they're being paid not to talk about them. So they create the controversy, of Drew Ali got this information from this group or this book even more as you hear creating controversy, a lot of them are COINTELPRO. Because really, it's so much work that needs to be done. We don't have time and energy to really be talking about nonsense. Meaning that for Moors to be debating and feuding with other Moors about the interpretation of Drew Ali or what's in literature, to me is just a lost debate. It's wasted time and energy. Because the real issues at hand is we're supposed to be helping our people proclaim their nationality. And I can tell you numerous people who legally have not done that yet. And a lot of the people who are creating these controversies and debates still have not proclaimed their nationality. So the focus point to me should be trying to proclaim your nationality and become a lawful de jure citizen instead of debating about interpretation or religious controversy. There's no time for that. I'm more interested in getting together to talk about how to enforce the county clerks to file documents. I'm willing to travel and gather with Moors to talk about that issue, or something to the nature of a class action suit to get the officials to do their job, versus me sitting around talking about how someone interprets the movement, or if Drew Ali talked about sovereignty or if he didn't. If Drew Ali was dealing with religion, those type of debates is just very unconstitutional in nature, because I think it's pretty much clear on what Drew Ali was teaching. Like Brother Todd says, if you want to know about Drew Ali, why don't you ask him? Go to his literature and read. Don't take my word for it. Don't take the Grand Sheik's word for it. Don't take any leader's word for it. Just go straight to the literature. But what a lot of leaders do is they distract you from the Moorish literature altogether, and they replace it with their own literature. So you get these brilliant scholars and Moorish leaders who will direct you to all these books that they created and all these lessons and programs that they want you to follow, but will not give you the origins of where that information came from. Because they want you to get stuck in that same program or belief system. They want you dependent on them. And they don't want you to have a free mind to be able to free yourself. Once a person has all of the information that Drew Ali put forth and understand the real mission of Drew Ali, then they don't need to be gained at that point. They know exactly what to do. And then they'll be able to hold others that's not doing what they're supposed to be done to what they're supposed to be doing, because they know better. So if you go sit, for example, if you go sit in the temple and they're not following what Drew Ali said himself, then you automatically recognize them as a part of that program. And your job becomes at that point to expose them and to educate the people who are under that yoke and law to what Drew Ali really said for them to do. If they don't want to listen to you, then you can take their energy and go elsewhere. It's very simple. We're still dealing with issues that's over 100 years old, that's 300 years old. And technically, you'll think by now we'll be putting brakes on the Negro, Black, and Colored thing, but really they take a Negro, Black, and Colored thing to a different height. For some of you, you might be aware of this. For others, you might not. But this is the work of our leadership. I have an article here from the China Real Times. It says, in South Africa, Chinese is the new black. Now this is what we're up against. And I'm going to read this article to you. It says, a high court in South Africa ruled on Wednesday that the Chinese South Africans will be reclassified as black. Wow. A term that includes black Africans, Indians, and others who were subject to discrimination under the apartheid. As a result of this ruling, ethnically Chinese citizens will be able to benefit from government affirmative action policies aimed at undoing the effects of the apartheid. It says in 2006, the Chinese Association of South Africa sued the government, claiming that its members were being discriminated against because they were being treated as whites, as thus failed to qualify for business and job promotions reserved for victims of the apartheid. The association successfully argued that since Chinese South Africans has been treated unequally under the apartheid, they should be reclassified in order to redress wrongs of the past. We'll continue. This is not the first time the classification of Chinese in South Africa has been changed. In fact, the racial status of Chinese South Africans has often shifted with the nation's political climate and its international relations. The first significant group of Chinese came to South Africa in the early 20th century, before a formal system of the apartheid existed, to work in the gold mines. They were not encouraged to settle permanently, and by 1910, almost all the mine workers had been repatriated. Now that's another term that we also deal with because it relates to nationality or proclaiming your nationality. This term is called repatriation. Those who remained struggled with racism and lived in separate communities based on language, culture, and social economic status. As the apartheid became enshrined in law with the ascendancy of the Afrikaner government in the late 1940s, the Chinese were reclassified as colored. A lot of people didn't even know that. Forced to live apart from whites and were denied educational and business opportunities along with the right to vote. But after South Africa established an economic alliance with Taiwan in 1970, the Taiwanese immigrants were welcomed as honorary whites. And other Chinese in South Africa began to be treated more like whites. Although they never attained the formal honorary white status of the Taiwanese, Koreans and Japanese in South Africa and couldn't vote. Chinese South Africans were no longer required to use segregated facilities, and in the early 1980s they were exempted from some of the discriminatory laws that applied to other non-whites. And there's a whole article on it, I'm not going to read it all. But I'm going to highlight some things for those who might not understand the trickery within this. The first highlight I want to go through is the term apartheid. And they used it said the term, it said the South Africans was reclassified as black, a term that includes black, African, and Indian, and others who were subject to discrimination under the apartheid. Now, according to our people and the National Census Bureau, they say that black, the race known as black, are really descendants of slaves brought here from Africa. And they call them black because, quote unquote, the color of their skin. But in this particular article, they're saying black is a term that includes, not limited to, that's not saying that are, they're saying that includes black Africans, which is a fiction, Indians, which is a fiction, And they say, and others. But that's not what they told us to represent. Here they're saying, and others, who were subject to discrimination under the apartheid. So the key word is apartheid. For those that don't know, let's examine what apartheid is. And anytime anybody have any information on this or any questions, they can stop me and add on to this.
God good, God good.
I'm looking up apartheid. Alright, according to this Webster's New 20th Century Dictionary, that's all I have with me right now, but the older dictionary is the best one to use. Apartheid is the policy of strict racial segregation and discrimination against the native Negroes and other colored peoples as practiced in South Africa. Now, to qualify why this has something to do with South Africa. Back to Drew Ali's lesson, he says that every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact they have not honored their mothers and their fathers, foremothers and their forefathers. So let's get this straight, people who want going back to Africa movement. Africa has been colonized years ago. That's even why they even call the continent Africa. The very nature of it being called Africa is due to colonization. We must understand that. So our people on this going back to Africa stuff, going back to Africa movement, and thinking that they study Egyptology and chemistry and all of this other stuff, that all that's colonized. And the people there are colonized. So you look into them for salvation and they don't have to give you because they've been colonized too. Predominantly, South Africa is under U.S. jurisdiction. Those are U.S. states. A lot of people don't know that. And one thing that occurred with Nelson Mandela when they agreed to let him out of jail was because he was part of the program. A lot of people don't understand that. When he became an icon and a so-called leader in those particular states that they was under the so-called U.S. jurisdiction. And what his job was is to bring them under that census in U.S. jurisdiction. He was responsible for that. They used him for that. So the colonization, not just in Africa, but the African states that's under U.S. jurisdiction, predominantly in South Africa, those people are known as black people now. Because that's something that the U.S. indoctrinated in that land. That's not something that was native to South Africa. South Africa never used the terminology black or Negro or colored as applied to people. That's something that came about after the U.S. got hold of the government of South Africa. And that's important because people, we look at Africa as still being a higher ranking or status according to our culture. We look at them as retaining the culture of the quote-unquote black race. And we don't understand that they've been duped and they've been dumbed down just like we have. And because they were, economically disadvantaged for so long and what we call poor, they accepted the U.S. programs very easy because they didn't have too much of a choice as far as the food and the clothing and the things that was had when South Africa was not developed. And the U.S. came over there and redeveloped it, and the people became agents of the U.S. So they didn't really have too much of a choice. They accepted these programs under threat of diversion. Who's going to turn down more food or better quality food, better shelter, and better program? So that's what you just read. The term apartheid represents the program and the programs that the U.S. actually administers to their members that come up under that program. So the people that's represented as disadvantaged people, or also termed minorities, are under what they call the apartheid. And that also goes right back to the 14th Amendment. Because the disadvantaged people, the minority people, or what they call the lower class people, are under the apartheid. And so whenever you accept that term minority, that's what you accept would be a part of the apartheid. And whenever you accept the apartheid, you accept them to be an artificial entity, a natural person. Because especially the U.S. system only gives these privileges to members who accept the privileges, to accept the status that the program or the agency has to offer. So 9 times out of 10, if you don't accept to participate with the U.S. agency, then what they say is you're not privy to the privileges that they have to offer, i.e. the welfare. It's a part of the apartheid. Section 8 is part of the apartheid. All of these things, even the driver's license and all that stuff is a part of the apartheid. The 501c3 for the tax bracket for these organizations is also under the apartheid. Whenever they're giving you anything, they refer to that as a privilege. They say a privilege is something that's given to you, but at the discretion of the one who gave it to you, can be taken away. So whenever they give you privileges, they're referring to you as a artificial entity, i.e. a slave. And those privileges are not based on a birthright or something that's owed to you. They're saying that's based on the discretion of the ones who gave it to you. So that's what you will recognize quickly when you see these programs and these institutions that's giving these breaks. It's all under the apartheid. Now, a lot of Jews go after these privileges. There's a lot of people that take, even the foreigners, when they come over here, Chinese, this is how they're able to establish in every city. They got a Chinatown, and all these, they got a Little Israel and all these towns. The Jews got their own communities, and they got their own banks, their own stores. The Hindus, they come over here and play the Indian game, and they set up their Indian communities. You gotta understand, when all these foreigners come over here, they agree to this affirmative action. And by agreeing to it from a nation perspective, or from their national ethnic group, they get funded, and they're able to establish these communities. These Indians, so-called Indians, which are Hindus, when they come over here and establish these Indian communities, when the Chinese come over here and establish these Chinatowns and these Chinese restaurants, all these communities, they're funded to do so under the apartheid. And this is what also constitutes their privileged citizenship to be here, because it makes the U.S. money, Federal Reserve notes. They're funded based on that. So the U.S. has looked at a bureaucratized way of maintaining slavery through naturalization and allowing foreigners to come over here and deal with international trade and commerce. So it's a very diplomatic, strategic institution that they have created, where slavery is on a whole different heightened level. They don't even have to rely on the so-called black people anymore for trade and commerce, because they expanded it into many different nationalities, to where the foreign exchange now, or the United States currency flow, becomes more of an international demand than a domestic demand, where they can care less about the domestic trade and commerce that's going on. All of the money that's being made now is really coming from overseas. And that's why they're in bed with all these different countries. That's where the New World Order is going. So, you know, the so-called black race is actually going down. It's really becoming an extinct race, because they really don't need them anymore. And this is why Drew Ali foresaw this and kept telling us that the worst is yet to come. You know, we got to educate our people and let them know this from this level, because, you know, it's going to come to a point where they can't even get jobs. I mean, once you don't have a way of, you know, it's hard for us now to convince somebody to proclaim their national heritage as Moorish. You know, because of the finances that's thrown at them through the celebrities and the work and all this other stuff. But it's going to come a time where that's going to be obsolete. And if we don't have economic security as a nation from our own resource perspective, you're going to have our own people that know better is going to capitulate and go right back into the U.S. protection, because they're not going to be able to eat and sustain themselves, because they put all their eggs in one basket and they still rely on this European to feed. They didn't know, like right now, you can't convince them to break away from the plantation. They don't want to break away from their 9 to 5. They don't want to hear nothing about being an entrepreneur and doing stuff for themselves. So that type of mindset, once again, is keeping them under that apartheid system, because working a job is still really under the nature or the umbrella of the apartheid. They're allowing you to feed your family. Outside of them giving you that 9 to 5 job, how would you eat? If we don't change that direction of our people, they're going to still be dependent on the U.S. system. So when we talk about proclaiming a nationality, like I said, we didn't begin even to touch on the surface on what that really means. We're just coming from a political perspective right now, the legal ramifications behind that and what that does. But really, from a slave perspective, it has everything to do with slavery. And in order to proclaim your nationality properly, we got to really decode this, break away from the system and be independent and really be sovereign for real. And don't depend on this European psychology for anything. I'm not telling everybody don't go to work. You know, don't work for anybody. I'm not saying that on that level. But what I'm saying is, don't be closed-minded to working for yourself and supporting your Asiatic establishment. You should have that as a backup just in case, because that JOB is not promised to you. The apartheid is not promised to you. The welfare is not a promise to you. The Section 8 is not a promise to you. When and it's really when our people become, like Talib Kweli said, when our people's way of life is threatened, that's when people want to become hypocrites. And most of the time, when you see active Moors really on the front line doing what we're doing and talking what we're talking, it's really because we have suffered and we have seen the way the system really operates. We're to the point where we have to be totally independent. We have no choice. So once we break away, it's hard to go back. So we can't run back to Master and ask him for this and ask him for that, because we already pissed him off. He don't like us. So we don't have that same opportunity that a lot of other people that straddle on the fence have. Once you break away, you got to totally run and don't look back. And this is why, Grand Sheik, you ask why, these people still want to straddle the fence, is because they pretty much understand that. So they want to keep one foot in and one foot out, just in case. Because they don't look at the Moorish movement as being promised. They want to have the best of both worlds, just in case. You know, and when you're really convinced of this, when your heart is really fixed in this movement, and when you really become who your forefathers were, you don't need to be convinced that you don't need no confirmation if this really worked or not. You're going to run towards it fast as you can and never look back, because you know it's your only salvation. Like the Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us, that it comes only through the connection towards divine and natural movement. And until you can study and unfold, you don't understand what that statement really means. But recapping this Chinese being the new black, the question is, as a red flag into the mindset of our people, how can the Chinese be the new black? That should automatically raise a red flag in your mental state. Because if black is a certain people that you say you brought here to America, because remember, they don't use the term black in Africa. With only the exceptions of the U.S. territories we use that term now. But prior to that, a couple hundred years ago, they didn't use the term black in Africa. They didn't use the word black in China. And they still don't use the word black in China. So how can the Chinese be the new black? That should be a red flag to anybody who still calls themselves black today. To your people who don't accept this, you print out that article, go right to Google, to the China Real Time, and type in Chinese is the new black. Print out the article and give it to them. And then ask them to intellectually debate with you on the issue. And if someone becomes a new black, then tell me this. If something is becoming the new black, what happens to the old black? That means it doesn't sound like something good. If they're going to amend something, or anytime you amend or replace something, your whole intent is to do without the old. So that means there's got to be some type of plans in the makings for the quote-unquote people that they refer to as black people. Because I'm going to be honest with you, the Chinese are a lot more industrious than the so-called black. So who you think they're going to care about more? The new Chinese black or the old Negro blacks? Who's going to be more of an asset to the system at that point? Right.
Got another question.
Yes, sir.
Moore just called me. He wanted to know how do you Moors tie themselves to the correct line or succession of Noble Drew Ali based on this infiltration that went on.
My advice is we kind of like in a catch-22 here. Can you see the call me, please? And the catch-22 is this. Steve from Exeter, you want to call the ball back to something you were meeting? You can tell Mike I'm here. All right, Islam. The problem we have here today is because of the split of the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1929, we had COINTELPRO come into the movement, and like I explained, the U.S. program had been incorporated into the Moorish Science Temple of America. And for many generations, the temples that we had that were active were only active under the program of COINTELPRO. Some of them intentionally and knowingly participated in it, some of them unknowingly and unintentionally participated in it. And even to this day, you have people or temples and new temples coming into this that are following the generations that have been part of the program. And you have some temples coming in that's independent from those traditional temples that were part of the program. And because of the offshoot, there was really never a collective move to incorporate all of the temples back under the correct structure of the Moorish Science Temple. So because of that, no one temple is actually under the true succession, as you will, or under the true charter of the original charter of the Moorish Science Temple of America from 1928. There's several temples that claim they are the organic Moorish Science Temple of America, but it's not true. There's people who make claim of such, but in all actuality, no one can claim the true successorship of the Prophet this time. So because of that, it doesn't mean that we should eliminate a responsibility to participate with the Moorish Science Temple. But we have to encourage, just like we talked about enforcing the elected officials of our government to do what they're supposed to do, we also have to take that same responsibility to enforce our Moorish leaders to do what they're supposed to do. And that's to come to the table and fix this nonsense and reestablish the true infrastructure of the Moorish Science Temple of America. That has to be done, and it's only going to be done through the plebiscite of the people enforcing the leaders to change. Until we collectively start to change what these temples are doing and what they're talking about and what claims that they make, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. So, you know, people, what we're doing here in Jersey, in Asbury Park, what you're doing there in Canaanland is actually along the lines of what needs to be done of exposing the infrastructure that has gone astray. So we have to continue to do that, but put more pressure on that so that we can get quicker results. So that one day we can consciously and trustworthy tell people to join a certain temple and know that it's under the correct lineage of the Prophet, or the temples are doing what they're supposed to do at that point. We have full faith and confidence once we all get back together under the same umbrella, with new leadership, that is, new representation. Until we get that, it's like a hit or miss type situation. You have to find a temple, predominantly a new temple at that, sort of like Canaanland, sort of like ours here, that actually are independent from the infiltration, that are trying to carry out the Prophet's instructions to the best of their ability without having any obligation to the traditional temples that are forcing us to operate a certain way. Once you agree to accept membership or a charter to become a temple from the traditional temples that have been a part of the program, you just become another agent of that program. And they will not allow you to incorporate your own teachings or talk freely like we're talking right now. Because they're not going to want or allow you to talk against the agenda. So you mainly got to find some temple group of Moors that really are trying to free themselves and follow the Prophet's teachings and get with them and just participate with them in order to make a change on a collective scale. And don't let anybody tell you anything different, because it's really not true.
I spoke with him more a couple of days ago, and he said that he was looking for temples to study under because he was already in the temple. And in him going to the temple that he was part of, they were telling him that he shouldn't be outside the temple with his fez on and turban on, and he shouldn't be teaching this information outside of the temple.
Action film. Did they give more reason why? Why not?
They said that because this information is not for everybody or something to that effect. That they have to come in to get it. We can't go out and get them type of mentality. So
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, I apologize that the brother or sister had to experience that, and once again, that comes from the truth not being exposed hard enough and fast enough. Like what we're doing have to be multiplied so that they will not be able to get away with that nonsense. What he experienced was COINTELPRO. That's what COINTELPRO is saying. That's not what the temple is saying. That's not what Noble Drew Ali said. So that's what I'm saying, that people are under the assumption that some of these temples are correct in what they're saying, and they have to recognize them as being an agency and not a Moorish science temple. It may look like a Moorish science temple, but they're colored. Colored means anything with the painted, stained, varnished dye. Color also means something that appears to be something that is not. And most of your temples out here, and even, I don't want to just say just the temples, but even Moorish groups that's outside the temple who don't call themselves temples, a lot of them are colored too. A lot of them are agents. Even though they might talk more from a political side of things or aspect of things, but they're still promoting the program. And until you really study Drew Ali's information personally, you will really never be able to tell who's who. And it's good to listen to certain leaders, to certain teachers, and remember, when we're dealing with man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed. So although that I applaud, and value the fact that you have trust in me to have me speak to you today, but I will still tell you, don't listen to everything that I'm saying. Don't take what I'm saying on face value. You go research what I'm saying to you. Go back to where I got my information from, and I'm telling you where I got my information from. Anything I say to you, I'm telling you where it came from. If it's an article, if it's an excerpt, that's why I read a lot, even when I do a lecture, because it's not all about what I'm saying to you. If you have no resource of where I get my information from, no reference point, then you're just going to know because I told you. And the lesson tells us that man knows not by being told.
Wow.
So I don't want you to believe what I'm saying to you. Research what I'm saying to you, then we'll know the same thing. And you'll be able to back up what you're saying when you repeat it to somebody else. So I tell those brothers and sisters, there's plenty of people who were told that same stuff. Study Drew Ali's literature, all of it. And then you will know for yourself if that's right or wrong. You don't need me to tell you that's right or wrong. You would already know it, because he'll be telling you what he wants to do. This is not a club. This is not a fraternal organization to the point where it's a secret society. And if you go back to the old excerpt of Moorish Guide and the Moorish pictures and stuff that they show you from the 1920s when Drew Ali was here in flesh, you will see they were out in the public with their feathers on. And they were teaching the people on the street corners. Drew Ali used to stand on a milk crate on State Street in Chicago teaching the people about their nationality and birthright, before they even had a temple set up. So, I mean, why would he change that to mean something different now? The only thing that Drew said pertaining to the public in Jeff Fezzes, he told Moors that were drinking and smoking cigarettes back in the day. Some Moors were caught coming out of the bars with their turbans and feathers on, and he made a statement in open temple meeting. He told the Moors to stay out the alleys with your turbans and your feathers on. And that's the statement, that's what he was making reference to. Those Moors that was going in and out the nightclubs, acting the fool, and that was putting dirt on the Moorish organization. That's where that came from. Now, if somebody want to misconstrue that to mean don't walk around in public altogether, then hey, that's their interpretation. But Drew never made that a law or a mandate to carry to do that.
Anybody have a question? We're at a 2 hour mark right now. Could you address any literature that you have out and where it should be purchased?
What was the last part you said?
Any literature that you have out and where it could be purchased, or a website or anything like that, and any closing remarks with regard to Moorish History Month. A brief measure on the Moors in Europe for the Moors that are waking up in the UK right now. So we got a few calls from Moors out that way, getting into this information.
Well, I'm gonna deal with the Moors in the UK and also all over the world, because they actually calling from multiple different places. We got a lot of active Moors calling out from the Jamaica territory as well, and England. So we want to give honor to those Moors. You know, I refer to them as our international Moors. You know, this is an international movement, and it's their birthright as well. And like the statement I made earlier, that every nation has suffered slavery. So it's not just a Moorish American thing. It's not just a North America thing. Every nation, every country has been under a Roman yoke and law at some point. So some of them are more politically accurate than others, some of them are not. But everybody has some type of oppression going on in their country. And the Moorish movement helps serve as a platform for others in other countries to actually get politically active and get de jure in their citizenship in those lands as well. And being that we are really targeting the Constitution of the United States here, the Constitution of the United States is really an international constitution. This is why Drew Ali referred to it as one of the greatest documents of all times. And he says once it's perfected here, it will be one of the greatest constitutions of the world. It will be one, he said, one of the greatest governments of the world, in correction. Because this is the hub of the universe, right here. And the people here are the nucleus behind the rest of the world waking up. So it's due to us of North America, which is the North Gate of civilization, that we are introducing this information to the outside world, and we're allowing them to be free from their iron hand oppression of their government. So this is why there's more pressure on us to be correct in what we're doing, be more unified in what we're doing, because the rest of the world is looking towards us for guidance. You know, and if we're misguided ourselves and we're divided, then how can we help them? So just like, you know, you said before, a person wants to know what's the proper lineage and what's the proper temple to join with. Because of the nonsense, unfortunately, we don't have places to send them. So this is why we started the MST online. And same thing with you guys, starting the online classes. And the temple, we taking the temple online and the membership online, giving people an opportunity to proclaim their nationality and be a part of a temple and be a part of classes without being under the Roman yoke and law of those particular temples in their own particular states that's trying to push them into that COINTEL program. This is why we started that. And this started really along with other Moors that's been on YouTube and doing lectures for years. This public movement actually serves as a basis for those international Moors getting involved with this movement. Is because they're able to go on the internet now and see activity. Where before, Moors in different countries couldn't see what was going on because we had no outlet for Moors to find out what was going on. So you talk about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it was, Moors wouldn't know about what other Moors are doing. It was hard for Moors in New Jersey to know what Moors in Chicago was doing, or Moors in Jersey knowing what Moors in California was doing. So with the new technology, New Jersey and Canaanland is sitting here looking at each other, discussing the issue. You understand? UK and Canaanland is talking about the issue and traversing back and forth and doing classes together. So because of what we're doing, we're allowing other nations to actually become a part of what we're doing, which makes this international now in nature. And it puts more pressure on the COINTEL program in the U.S. because now we have more support to go against them. So it makes them up the ante on their side, on their end, to actually go against what we're doing. So, you got to be aware of that because for every action brings about a reaction, cause and effect. Those are laws. Also dealing with the... Before I get into the literature,
Okay.
I just want to finish on the black thing. Because just like I take advantage of every so-called holiday, because of the vibration and the intensity of what the holidays bring, it actually gears the minds of the people to have what they call a holiday spirit. The Christmas time, people are more humble and generous because they quote unquote got the holiday spirit. Likewise with all the other holidays. So every holiday, so-called holiday, European holiday it is, even our holidays, I try to utilize that energy and that vibration to get with that momentum to put the correct information into the airwaves, to offset the negative information that goes into the airwaves. So with this so-called, I'm going to refer to Black History Month as a holiday. And they consecrated a certain month out of the year, which happens to be the shortest month out of the year. Give them credit for something. But they actually consecrated this time period for the so-called Black agenda and the affirmative movement, which is the affirmative action. So it's a civil rights holiday. Let's talk about that. Outside of the lecture that we're doing and the compilation of lectures that y'all doing every week, we should take advantage of this every day. We have children at home, we got family members at home. We have to go back at home and be the teacher. And because our children are going to school and they're forced to deal with programs and seminars that deal with the issue of Black history, they're asked to do reports, essays, their homework is based on Black History Month. Because this is a holiday, you have a momentum or vibration of this Black awareness going on in the air right now. We have to counter that with Moorish heritage information. So we got to put extra time into this right now. We got to put extra fiat into this right now. We got to sacrifice time out of our regular schedule that we'll be doing other stuff and take some time to address the Black history issue. Even though we should do this all year round, But if you're not the type of person that put that much energy to this year round, please, we're asking for your assistance. Take some time and do this now to help what's going on, because we're outnumbered in energy. Because the whole country, the Board of Education, the television, news broker, everybody is on this black awareness stuff right now. And we're really outnumbered with the amount of people who are really teaching positive history and trying to correct the racism issue. We're outnumbered. So we need the support of everyone right now, at least counter this some type of way. One way we can counter this is through literature. We failed to do this so far, but we should have newspapers out on the particular agenda of just Black History Month alone. And it's not too late. I mean, we have people who can put together civil letters. It could be a brochure, pamphlet, a free handout, you know, just like you got your Jehovah's Witnesses go door to door, and they give you a little word of the day and all that little stuff. We got to take that same energy right now just to put a message of the day out, a message of the month. It could be something you type up on your computer and just print it out, you know, on a regular piece of paper and just hand it to people when you walk down the avenue. I mean, just little stuff like that make a difference, can make a change. Encouraging your children to write essays on Noble Drew Ali, on John Hanson, correcting who's the first president of the United States, just gearing their minds into another direction that they don't usually speak about. Because in the Black History educational programs, they give you a list of people who they suggest that you should write about or you should study, that you should do homework on. And they're only going to list to you certain people that they want you to know about. And it's redundant because you talk about the same people for years and years and years. But they will never encourage you to write about Marcus Messiah Garvey. They will never encourage you to write about people like John Hanson. They will never encourage you to write about people, pertaining to Oscar, Noble Drew Ali, you know, Edward Milley Hill. These are people, when you write about that, they're going to say who? If anything, they might know about what you call Marcus Messiah Garvey, only because of the position that, you know, they acknowledge. But outside of that, you talk about Noble Drew Ali, they're going to say, well, who's that? And that's the problem. You know, then once you do come from that perspective, then they're going to try to put it into the religious thing. So, once again, we're going to encourage our children in every school. We got children, we got family members in every school. Let's encourage them to write, or even do the article form. We know we want to try to encourage the children to do their own homework, because that's how they learn. But we know truth of the matter is they're not going to really write about what we want them to know. So help out with the homework, help out with their essays, and even do a pre-template for them and give them somebody to write about. Because the art of war is they go back and they have to read this to the class. They have to read this in front of the school. So it's doing more than just educating the other students. It's educating the teachers, it's educating the principals, and it's educating whoever else is going to listen to these articles. So that's a way that we can introduce this information into the system. Also, you can, the local libraries in your area, they also have money set aside during Black History Month where they allow lecturers to come in and do lectures and do seminars for Black History Month. And they have slots set aside where different people can come in, and they actually pay them to do that. The state gives the libraries a certain amount of funds to actually have speakers come in, so they're obligated to pay people to come in and talk about Black History Month. So what you can do, I suggest those who are qualified to this, as far as your grand sheiks and your leaders, those who are educated on this issue, Go down to your local libraries, your county libraries that is, and actually let them know that you're a lecturer and you want to do something on Black History Month. And they will give you a time slot, a day and a time to come in and do a segment of Black history. All of that's necessary because it's not just the people that agree to come to our meetings that we got to target. You got to go outside and tell people about this that is not even interested in this. You got to catch them when they least expect it. So you got to go to where they're at, not just where they're coming to. And that's our comfort zone. We don't have no problem speaking to our people who come to our meetings. Let's get out of our comfort zone and go where people don't really want to hear it. You got to take it to that forum as well. Because somebody that's going to hear that is going to look at it a different way. And it only takes one person to make a change. So you got that as an alternative. We got the internet, your social networks, Facebook, Instagram. Change the direction of what people talking about on those forums. Put the messages, the words of the day out there on that level. Do more lectures like we're doing now. Put them on DVD. Give them out. Free DVD, Black History Month. Take every measure to get this information out to people that we can. Even if you just want to finance out your pocket, just giving them literature, free literature. The literature that we already have put together, as far as Noble Drew Ali's pamphlet, Quran, the Moorish Guide, Message to America, the Divine Warning for the Nation. You just print them out, give them out to the people free of cost. Make the sacrifice during this time because, like I said, we need all the support that we can get. We got old issues of our newspapers. We don't have any new newspapers right now to issue, but we still got a bunch of old issues that we can just hand out for free. You can send them out there if anybody interested just to get back copies out. Just give them out for free. Because old information to us is still new information to them. And a lot of people always ask for stuff, and I tell them you didn't even digest the old stuff yet. It's so much stuff that we can do to get this information out, man. Every once in a while, our members go out to the local city areas where people hang out at. Just your downtown areas, your marketplace, flea markets, your shopping districts, just where the Asiatics hang out at. They go down there dressed in Moorish apparel, fezzes on and turbans, and they just go walk the streets and just talk to the people. And they usually get a crowd of people who surround them and just want to talk because they're interested in, what's this all about? What y'all out here doing? And that's a good way just to spark a conversation with the people. Just go out there for Black History Month. Go out there as a group of people. Like there's several people in the temple now that I see sacrifice work Saturday, Sunday when you're not doing, and when people out shopping, doing whatever they do, and just go out there as a group and just, stand there as a group and talk to the people. You'll be amazed at how many people stop and talk to you. Because it looks positive to them. It looks like a strong movement going on, and they want to stop and just dialogue, want to know what's going on. But that's an opportunity to talk to people who might not know about this. And now you can invite them to the temple or to the next class to actually come hear more about it. You give them a little bit out there, out on the street. Now you can invite them to where the class is at. Because somebody's going to be interested. It works every time. These are just different measures, different suggestions that I have. Any questions on that before I go forward? Might even have some suggestions on that.
Everybody,
Islam. Like I said, we do have back issues of a lot of literature that we have put out over the years. I don't have anything new. I'm actually working on a revised edition of our Due Process of Law book because we still sell a lot of copies of those. But times has changed and there's new ways that I've figured out on how to do things, and even, you know, like I said earlier, man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed. So there's stuff that we put out 5-10 years ago. You know, I looked at some of those methods as being off a little bit, or some of them being wrong. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, because it worked and it served its purpose for the time period. But I looked at better ways and more constitutional ways of doing things. So instead of putting more literature out right now, I'm more interested in going back and revising literature that we put out in the past that I see that it's a better approach or a better way of explaining something, and adding more to that. And that's what I'm more worried about doing right now. There's more newspapers that, like I said, I was trying to get a newspaper out for Black History Month, but I just didn't meet the deadline for it. You know, so we're still going to be putting something out pertaining to that issue. And me and Brother Taj Tariq is actually working on something now for the Trayvon Martin and Gardner with these police brutality issues going on. We're actually putting a newspaper together dealing with that, with the help of Sheikah's Nika as well. So that's something that we're working on coming up very soon, because that's real big here. They're still protesting out here over these issues. And actually, there has been more police shootings over the past couple weeks. So it's an ongoing thing going on. So now every time someone gets shot by the police, it brings about that whole agenda, that whole civil rights thing. And also they just came out, one of the, I forget which one it was off the hand, but one of the victims' family just got awarded $3 million or whatever for, you know, civil rights based on them losing the lost one. I forgot which one it was. But that's also raising questions, and people...
Former police officer, they donated another sponsor gave one of the police officers' family $1 million.
Yeah, I'm being told it was one of the police officers' family that was victims. They got sponsored because one of the police officers who got killed, and they're trying to say because the police officer was a victim, they awarded his family $3.5 million in punitive damages and all of that for the family sufferings or whatever. So now the issue becomes with the Asiatics. They're looking at it like you acquitted these officers for shooting the Asiatics. They're getting emotional now and saying that, you know, our people ain't getting nothing, but you award the police officers $3.5 million, so they want to start protesting, looting over that now. You know, so it's like, it's an ongoing thing down here with what's going on with this police brutality. So this is something that's really stirring up in the ethers. So because that's the hype, we want to take advantage of that hype because that's what every people is concerned about right now. We got to carry that wave. We got to add on to that wave, so to speak, and take advantage of that wave. So that's why we're doing literature now on that issue, because people want to hear about that right now. There are people looking for solutions according to that. It's real sensitive on with that right now. So that's all for us, what's new. You know, but really, like I said, it's the old that we really want to focus on, because truth don't change. And you know, we've been putting out stuff over the years, a lot of information, and really, it's that information that we really need help on. That information explains a lot. You know, that if people just digest that and get with the program, that we just solve a lot of things immediately right now pertaining to these issues. I had a treatise that I was doing on what I call how to live within contracts and live within a common law venue. That's a series of lectures that I had started with years ago, and then I started to write a book on that, and I put together a little pamphlet on that just to rush it out basically, because I didn't get a chance to do a whole book on it. And because of that, I have a lot of people asking about that particular pamphlet, so I'm actually revising that as well. Because that's a hot topic that we get into when we talk about how to disclaim Negro, Black, and Colored. Because when you agree to be Negro, Black, and Colored, it's not just through saying, I'm a black man, you know, I'm a Negro. It's really through the contracts that we agree to, which declares us being Negro, Black, and Colored. So that's why I did the seminars on how to live within the contracts, because the contracts is what declare you to be Negro, Black, and Colored. Because Negro, Black, and Colored is only enforceable through agreement. And contracts is based on law. You know, and all laws is contracts. So when you start talking about what is law and what's not law, what you're really talking about is what contracts did you agree to, contract you didn't agree to. Because whatever contract that you agree to becomes the law. And our people have a hard time with understanding that. So it's not just the languages you choose, but it also goes all into whatever you declare as a status for yourself. Whatever affirmative action programs that you agree to. Your driver's license, birth certificates, social security cards, even job, employment. A lot of programs that you sign up for or you sign on a dotted line, somewhere within the terms and conditions have you identified as a black male or a black female. And soon as you agree to that without a reservation or right, what you do is you agree to not just participate in affirmative action, but you also agreeing to take on the status of an artificial entity or a ward of the state. So therefore, when you start trying to be independent and trying to protect your birthright and exercising your constitutional protections at law, first thing that they do is try to disqualify your claim by saying that, well, you know, you're still a 14th Amendment citizen, or you're still in the system some type of way. Soon as you start to exercise this, it could be anything from trying to deal with the right to travel or trying to opt out of paying taxes. They're only going to hold you to the contracts that you have engaged in the past. And they're going to use that to disqualify whatever consideration that you're asking for now. And Moors get caught up into that every day, and that's the mistake. And that's really the dilemmas that Moors are having out here in the outside world. So it all comes down to what type of contracts that you have. You know, that determines your status. Because you either agree to be in the system or outside the system, and the contracts is what tell if you are in it or if you're not in it. If they can run your social security number and it comes back to the name that they created on that lien with the birth certificate, then they're going to say you're still an artificial entity. You're still a corporate franchise of the U.S. You're still a ward of the state. You're still chattel property. You're still black in their eyes. Regardless of what you say out on paper, you're still black. So the contract is what's part of that process that the brother asked about earlier on how you proclaim your nationality is by first declaring it through oath and affirmation and putting it on public record, and then you start to what you call rescind the contracts that you have made with the U.S. franchises over the years from you being 1 to 18 or 1 to whatever age you are now. Because every time you engage in a new contract, if you don't do it correctly, you only reinforce it, the corporate rule contract that they already had with you. So it's important once you proclaim this that you have to start rescinding these contracts through templates and affidavits to tell them that you're disclaiming, you're opting out of the contract that you once had with them. So you have to rescind contracts. So it's all about contracts. And this was the due process, the law book, volume 2 actually deals with that we created years ago. Due process of law volume 1 is more of a archive book that shows you different laws that pertain to a Moorish American, different proclamations that you should be aware of as being a Moorish American, things that will help you protect and secure your birthright. Due Process of Law Volume 2 deals with active protocols, and that book was put together to form as a template of affidavits and different contracts that you need to rescind in order to opt out the corporate ward citizenship of the U.S. So that's what you start using when if you're not informed on how to make your own contracts, how to make your own affidavits, how to battle traffic tickets, how to opt out of taxation. All of these things we have put together in Due Process of Law Volume 2 as templates that you can use as a guideline to start opting out or rescinding some of these contracts. So for the affidavits and the templates that's not in there, Due Process of Law Volume 3 will start to take up on where Due Process of 2 left off at. It'll start having these templates in there for the modern day usage of the modern day issues that class action lawsuits and things like that we need to deal with. How to address the county recorder's office. We started in Volume 2. There is an affidavit in there. The county recorders do not want to copy a document. There is a template in there that you can file with them or put them on notice on what obligation they have to file it and why their office is the correct place it needs to be filed. So it gives you some ammunition on to file these documents. So you can use that as the template. Volume 3 will start getting into how to put the class action lawsuit together because they failed to record your document. And we'll start growing it on that level and putting stuff together on that level to address these agencies and these governmental elected officials.
All right, Mark. You have any closing remarks?
Yes, I also want to address the here in the state there, they have what they call a national ID that they're trying to push. And like we talked about earlier, the driver's license is pretty much the standard as what they accept as probative value as ID for the citizen. Because you have one centralized government they're trying to push in one world order, new world order, they're trying to push a national ID that will be known and recognized as the standard for all over the Americas and all of the U.S. territories that's in other countries, that they will have a basic national ID that everybody will be known and recognized by. And we have to also expose that and educate our people not to agree to that. Even our Congressman Ron Paul did lectures against the national ID. And that's something that you can, I don't know if you're aware of Senator Ron Paul. He used to be Congressman, still is involved. But you can go on YouTube and he has his own website. But you should also listen to Ron Paul and a lot of his teachings because he's a constitutionalist. And he, enforces the Constitution, and he actually talks in the same spirit as the Prophet Noah Ali. And a lot of the issues that's involved in government, he actually opposes and addresses from the Republican Party's perspective. And once you listen to him, you can understand the direction that the Moorish American need to be in. We need more leaders to speak like Ron Paul. And the Prophet made a statement before. He says that if you want European grand sheiks, I can give them to you. And when I hear that statement, I think about people like Ron Paul because, to be honest with you, Ron Paul is more upholding the Prophet's program than a lot of these grand sheiks in Moorish Science Temple. And it's sad to say that, but it's the truth.
What it is.
And Ron Paul will make a great grand sheik. I'll go listen to him anything if he hold position because it's hard to get that type of standpoint and information and courage from the average leader within our community. He's off the grid with what he does. You know, and there's a lot of European forums that's actually off the grid, like Alex Jones. You know, like the Prophet told us, he says, the Europeans and other nations are helping me. He said, why not you? He said, the Negro problem is your problem. You know, and I listen, like I said, I can listen to a lot of these Europeans, and they're talking more and more science than our own people. You know, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. You know, like I said, Moors, in closing, the national ID is something that we definitely have to oppose, because that's going to be an instrument that's really going to further oppress us from a national identification standpoint. We've been working, and it started with Noble Ali. He was the first one to address the identity of the Asiatic and the citizens. He says that the Thais, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Arabians, they're all forced to be, you know, to proclaim their free national name before the Constitution and government is no more than right, that law should be enforced on every other citizen alike. So the concept is your within the Constitution of the United States. If you're Italian, you should be recognized as Italian. That's what your ID should say. If you're Japanese, your identification should be Japanese. If you're German, your national ID should say German. They're trying to introduce another identification that's going to further put you back into slavery. It's not working on trying to work on the solution of the identification crisis. We should be trying to change the racism, or when I say racism, meaning the race from an ethnic group and a racial status and a racial standpoint. The race class is a fiction altogether. Here in North America, on your identification, they have the word race. And then next to race, it will have either black, white, Hispanic, etc. The whole classification of race is a fraud. And it's not improving because they're trying to eliminate that and go with the national ID, which will label you as a U.S. citizen altogether, which is not helping the problem. What we need to be doing is trying to change our governmental representatives to change the whole race classification and eliminate race and identify people according to their nationality. And that's what our leaders are supposed to be doing. Our leaders from the domestic Moorish nation should be involved in government, petitioning the government through their chosen representatives to change the race game through motor vehicle and through the State Department that issues identification. So the new national identification that they're talking about should reflect nationality on the ID and nothing less. And they already have templates of what that national ID looks like. Some people already have it. They're giving it to governmental officials first. And then they said that they're going to release it into the hands of the general common people. So within the ones that they already issued to the governmental officials, it's a fraud. It's worse. They got chips in them. It has retina display on it. So now they're going to be able to scan your eye and everything through this national ID. It's straight debasing and putting the people back into slavery from all different levels through this national ID. And if we don't really take a stand towards this stuff, it's going to be approved in Canada as well. That's why I'm hitting this early, so when it's introduced there, the people are already informed on what they're trying to do, the ramifications behind it. You got to stop stuff before it even gain momentum. You know, these leaders here don't want to really address it. They don't really want to talk about that. They want to really debate off religious controversies and stuff like that, which is just distraction. It's irrelevant towards the real agenda at hand here. So let's not really get caught in the distraction, really address what we need to do. Nationality is the old thing. Has always been and will always will be until we correct that. when your president or your leader stands up on national TV and refers to the quote-unquote black man as a Moorish American, we still got work to do.
All right, Islam, brother.
Islam.
I have a little question about the allodial title permit. How do we live within that? How do we let the Inquisitionists now uphold that law that is within it, pertaining to the Constitution and these things?
You said the allodial title of what?
The allodial title permit.
Permit?
Yes.
Permit of what though?
Allodial title.
But to what? To what specifically is the allodial title pertaining to?
Well, to your property or possession.
All right, meaning your house, your land,
Yeah,
stuff like that?
Yeah, your domicile and yes.
All right. Well, pertaining to that, as you know, to even raise the question, they don't possess an allodial title.
Right.
No one has an allodial title. That's something that you have to create.
Okay.
All right, because the land has been patented and claimed by the state and on a higher level by the Pope. So no one owns their property.
Right.
The only way you own your property is if you have, like you said, allodial possession or allodial title stating that you own property free and clear. So the state is not going to issue that, and the county is not going to issue that because they don't have it to issue to you. So what you have to do is think like a quitclaim deed and challenge whoever is claiming possession or have an interest in those properties. You have to challenge their interest in the property and put a claim to it yourself, and you have to create an allodial title to your land, to your house, to even your cars, because your cars you issued a certificate of title to your automobile, but you don't even own your automobile. So you got to create an allodial title for your automobile as well, and consider a land conveyance and not a vehicle. Until you do these things, that you really don't have a claim or right to your property. So you have to create the title. You have to file that title just same place you file your proclamation of nationality or your declaration of nationality. You have to file it in the same place. It's the registered deeds office, because they're pertaining to real property. They will try to block you and say, well, this is a name change. This doesn't pertain to real property. It does pertain to real property because you're not changing your name or claiming your nationality. And nationality has everything to do with a claim to the land. So it is pertaining to real property, which fits their indice that you can follow documents there. Same thing with a claim of deed or claim of right to your property. It pertains to real property. So the registered deeds office is the place where you file that. So you file an affidavit, a quitclaim deed, you put your own land patent together in the form of a allodial title, you file it and you challenge the bank. It could be a mortgage company. Somebody's going to try to challenge you on it. If you got a mortgage, then the mortgage company is going to challenge you on it because they're saying they don't pay. Because they gave you a loan and they're saying they're holding the house as collateral. So then they're going to be the ones with an interest in it. They're going to challenge your claim of right to it. Say if you don't have a mortgage on it, this is a house that your grandparents left you, or your parents left you through inheritance, then you still are paying taxes on it. You're only paying taxes on it because the state or the county is still claiming interest in that property. So they're saying that the property is still taxable. And it's only taxable because property can't own property. So they're saying that you're still a slave even if they're taxing you on this property. So therefore, once the allodial title and all of that checks back and you prove that you claim this property, now you can send that quitclaim deed because, let me back up. If they don't challenge you on a quitclaim deed, or say they do challenge you and you win and you claim that they don't have an interest superior to yours, they go into what they call default. Now you take that default letter and you file it with the court in the form of what they call a summary judgment. The summary judgment is something you issue to the court, asking the court to sign off on the fact that these people do not have an interest in the property no more, and you're the new owner of said property. Once the judge signs off through a summary judgment, now you own that property free and clear. Now you can send a copy of that summary judgment to the tax assessment's office. And those are the ones who assess the property and make you pay taxes on it from your city level and your county level. You got a tax assessor from the city and you got a tax assessment from the county. You need to send that document to both jurisdictions, so that they can stop taxing you on the property. So that's the only way you can get an allodial title, is by creating it. They're never going to give it to you because they don't have it. They don't use allodial titles in their registry because they're dealing with a corporate fiction.
Right.
So they deal with certificates and they deal with deeds. So what they're doing is they're claiming to have allodial possession of the property.
Right.
What they're giving you is a certificate of a deed. And a deed does not prove ownership to property.
Right.
It's only giving you guardianship over the property. That's why they call it a deed. But it does not indicate ownership. So they don't have allodial titles to give you. You have to create that. It's basically, what you got to basically do is take back the property.
Yeah, I understand.
And tell them that you're the owner of it and challenge them on their claim to it. And it comes down to whoever can produce a superior claim. Whoever can win that that paper battle is the one who actually becomes superior over that house or that property. And once you prove your claim, then now you can create whatever title you want, and you can refer to it as an allodial title.
Well, I can tell you just a little basis on the allodial title that you said to create. So we have an act down here, whatever, which we know is not law, right? And it states that when you have the allodial title and you go into an agreement with somebody, as soon as they see the allodial title, they actually have to give up to the allodial title. They have to adhere to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your suggestions on that, or your input on that?
Well, basically it's the same thing I'm saying. You have to create the allodial title, though.
Right.
And you use that to challenge their jurisdiction or their claim over the property. Because they can't produce a allodial title, automatically means that you are the true landowner or the heir to that property. The only thing they can produce is a corporate claim to it, which is all fictitious because they never paid for the property. Even if they satisfied it with Federal Reserve notes, only thing they did was they just transferring a corporate interest in the property. But that's just a corporate game being played, no different from playing Monopoly. It's a game that the system allows them to play until somebody challenges it. But this is why even within your consideration that you put on your allodial title, where you show how you obtain the property, you want to put on there that you obtain the property either through inheritance or you purchase the property with gold and silver. Because once you say that you purchase the property through gold and silver, it takes it out of their jurisdiction. Because you're the only one at that point that has purchased the property through gold and silver, which means that you're the only one that has a true purchase to the property. The bank didn't purchase the property with gold and silver. They only used Federal Reserve notes to transfer the property, which means that they technically didn't buy it because you can't satisfy debt without gold and silver coins. So the bank really does not own it. Even if they gave you a mortgage for it, they don't own it. But until you put it on paper and make it look tight, you're not gonna own it either.
Alright, Islam.
Islam.
Is that clear what I'm saying?
Oh, very clear. Yes, brother. Yes, brother.
And also, the reason why you put gold and silver there is because they can't tax gold and silver.
Right.
They can't tax real money. According to the Constitution, gold and silver is non-taxable. So if you put down, say for example, if you purchase a property and you let an attorney do the paperwork, he's going to put down there that you purchased the property for, say, $100,000, but that's going to be in Federal Reserve notes. Now, based on how much you paid for the property, the tax assessment office determines how much taxes that you have to pay on that, and how much taxes is associated with your property, based on the value of your property, the appraisal of it, etc. But now, they can't tax a free man's property. So if you're a free national being and you own the property outright with an allodial possession of the property, and you satisfy the property through gold and silver, the tax assessment office can't put a tax assessment to it because they can't tax gold and silver. They only can tax Federal Reserve notes.
Alright.
So anything that you say you satisfy with Federal Reserve notes becomes taxable. So this is why when sovereigns do business with sovereigns, they should always deal with barter trade and not use Federal Reserve notes as a means of consideration. So if I buy your automobile and we make a private agreement, we should not use their template for the bill of sale. Because as long as we use their template, now they can tax that. So we have to create our own bill of sale. And if I'm purchasing your automobile, then we need to put on that consideration that I bought your automobile for, whatever cube of silver or whatever consideration we want to come up with. And that's how ancient ones dealt business, and this is how sovereigns still do business. Because as long as we do that, it's outside of their jurisdiction. They can't come in there and regulate and tax that. And that gives me true ownership over the automobile once I purchase it that way, where I can create my own allodial title. So now for Moors that's riding around with their own Moorish license plates and stuff like that, that's things that they have to do to take it out of the state's jurisdiction. Because the state, as soon as you purchase a vehicle, through their terminology and their jurisdiction, what they do is they put a lien on that vehicle. They do a U61 financing statement, and they put a lien on the VIN number of that vehicle. Now you got to go to the Division of Motor Vehicles, and you got to do what they call register that vehicle, and do a transfer of title. Whenever you do that, what they do is transfer the lien from the previous owner to the new owner. And they create another UCC1 financing statement for that new vehicle, which gives them the ownership of the vehicle once again, and they give you what they call a certificate of title, which means you don't own that vehicle. The vehicle is still state property. That's what gives them the jurisdiction to pull that motor vehicle over and question you for license, registration, and insurance. And if they want to search the vehicle, they can tell you to get out. I need to open the trunk and search the vehicle, or I can put the dogs in it, because what they're really saying is, this is my vehicle, and I can do that. And people try to get away from that and want to put their own tags on the car. They want to use their own international road travel. But really, it's only effective to use these instruments if you take the automobiles that you're using totally out the system. Until you do that, they still got jurisdiction over the vehicle. They might not have jurisdiction over you, but they're saying you're driving a corporate vehicle. So because you're driving or operating a corporate vehicle, the terms and conditions is that you need a corporate driver's license if you're going to be operating my automobile. Just like if you or hired to drive a state vehicle. In order to do that, you gotta have state credentials. They're pretty much saying the same thing with your personal vehicle. It's still state property. They won't admit that to you, but it is state property. And because it's state property, they're saying the terms and conditions and usage of that, you gotta have these other credentials to go along with it. If not, then you're driving around illegally. And now we can give you a ticket, a fine, or throw you in jail because you're not cooperating with the laws, what they call the laws, but it's not a law. It's really rules and regulations of the contract. It's called breach of contract. So to eliminate that, you gotta register that outside the jurisdiction of the state.
Islam, brother.
Islam.
Alright, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother.
Anybody else? Give it up for GS Nature.
Islam.
Islam, Mark.
Thank you, Moorish, for allowing me the time
Thank
to
you.
demonstrate with you, brothers and sisters. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mark. And Islam to GS Nature. Islam to all the Moors and your staff out there that's continuing to do this work. Thank you for the continual inspiration. Because our little MSTA classes are doing pretty good out here.
Islam, give thanks. Absolutely. Let me get your input though, or anybody's input on that Chinese being the new black. What did y'all get from that article if not already aware of it?
I already put some posted on Facebook. Anybody?
Well, we already understand that they might come and take over Canada because they're already set up here. So.
I don't know if you heard that, but the Moor was saying that the jurisdiction of China, they're already over here on the takeover. So yeah, black people better look out for their position that they think that they got, because it's not going to last too much longer.
Yeah.
And we're speaking from, it could be something that they're doing here too, you know, having them classify themselves as black in order to slide under the so-called blacks and take over all their stuff. Because majority of the activity that the Chinese are doing here is the same thing, set up their own little community. They got their banks in their language, bank machines in their language, you know. A lot of the jobs are going to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're with the schools. In the schools, they're predominantly a lot of students now. You know.
Yeah.
And they're coming in from the perspective of go on honor roll every year. 20 of them on the honor roll or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When they put up the graduation pictures, all you see is East Asians and Chinese and these people. Hardly are you seeing our people on those walls.
Mm-hmm.
Getting their little diplomas or whatever. So they're definitely weaning the black status or the stateless people out of the way. To make room for more people who are, I guess, less industrial and more technological.
As far as the classification out there, do they use the term race?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So they use the same type of classification for white, black, and Hispanic as the major ethnic group?
Yeah, the major one, maybe not Hispanic so much, but black and white for sure. And then everybody else has their, what nationality that they could check off.
Chinese.
So it'll say black, white, but then it'll say Chinese, Turkish, whatever. Or it would say white, black, and other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, what they're trying to do is force the foreign-born subjects, or the ones who naturalize here, they're forcing them to come up under either black or whites.
Right.
That's part of the Naturalization Act. So some of them are actually disputing that because they have a problem with one or the other. And for the certain benefits that they receive when they get here, they are forced to accept that terminology. So a lot of them know better, they're just playing the game.
Right.
And they don't discuss that with the masses of people. You know, so they won't just they just won't admit that out in the general public, but as far as their classification on their documents will list them as either white or black.
Right.
According to whatever advantages or whatever they're trying to encounter. You know, and it's sad because, like, for years, even Moors here sometimes use the term white when they're dealing with status.
Right.
Instead of checking off black, they check off white. And they never could say anything to the Moors for doing that because they didn't want to expose the information. Right. So they pretty much just let you slide when you do it.
Yeah.
You know, but I tell Moors that I don't suggest that either because it's not proper.
Right.
The real agenda is to petition the national census to reclassify the classification status, where we can have Moorish American added to the census.
Right.
So if you're Moorish American, we want to be classified as Moorish American. We shouldn't have to fit any other index for you to put us under.
Right.
You know, there's even to say other. You know, other is still not specific.
Yeah.
And it has no lawful status to it when you do that. So the real goal through leadership is to try to get your national representation to challenge the fact of the nationalization identification and identify people according to their national origin.
Right.
And not according to color.
Exactly.
You know, and even on the instrument referred to as the driver's license, you know, they put race on that. And even within that, this is why we tell them it can never be used as a national identity because it doesn't identify a natural person at all.
Right.
So even though it might have your picture on there and your name, it's really not intended to say that you're a natural person. You only could be an artificial entity.
Right.
You know, so on it, you know, we need to even have them petition to put Moorish American on the driver's license. And put more validity to the driver's license. Like if saying that that's the instrument they want everybody to use. What we're saying is at least make it suit the individual. Right.
So that their nationality could be acknowledged, even though they're using that instrument.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you look at the at a pilot, the ones who you know fly airplanes, a pilot's ID and even their stewardess, their ID, they have separate ID than the rest of the citizens of the land. And the reason why is because they go through different international airports.
Yeah.
All right, and if you look at a pilot's ID, you might play around with it on Google just to get a template of what it looks like and what it reads. But a pilot ID has their nationality on it, where you can use that as the next as a teaching tool. Because the question becomes, why does a pilot's ID differ from a citizen's ID? Why does his ID have nationality, but a driver's license doesn't have nationality? And the reason is because they buried the concept of nationality here in the United States. But they'll give it to a person that is going to and fro, or what they call abroad. When they're going through multiple jurisdictions, because other governments or other countries still use nationality as identification. So they can't go there and have something to say race because they wouldn't know what they're talking about. Because there is no race in those other countries. Only jurisdictions that the U.S. have interest over. So on their IDs, they have even people who govern the ships, who take ships through international ports. Their ID has the same thing. It has nationality on it. The difference is the nationality says U.S. That's what they don't want to expose either. Because U.S. is not a nationality. But they just use it for the purposes of going to and fro different jurisdictions. But U.S. is still not a nationality. But it's more proper than saying race. So that's something that you guys can get into, in another segment, doing some work on that and readdressing that and exposing that to the people. Islam.
Peace and love, Sheikh.
Islam was, it's been a pleasure once again.
Appreciate
I always
it.
enjoy building with my family.
Great.
Islam.
Oh yeah, one more thing too. Plug the site.
Yes.
Plug the website, so people could find you out there on the internet.
Oh yes. Our website is actually under reconstruction. It's actually visible, but we modified it. It's moorishguidepost.org. .org. It used to be moorishguidepost.com, but we had lost our domain name, so we had to change it to moorishguidepost.org. So that's up and running now, and we adding stuff to it about a week. So you can go on there now, even for MST online classes that we do. You can go see them right through the MST online's website. You don't have to go to Ustream to see the actual meetings live. You can go right to our website at moorishguidepost.org.
Islam.
Islam.
All right, more. Appreciate that. Give thanks for everything, bro.
Yes. Keep up the good work.
We will.
Islam was enforce that Constitution for the next time.
Islam.
Dispel the Black History Month.
Islam. We just started. We got through this level.
It's a never ending battle though.
Never ended.
Because Black History Month is all 12 months of the year.
For real.
Because they gonna demonstrate Black history every day, 365 days. So it's just an illusion when we say Black History Month.
Right.
That's just a so-called month they put aside for the Negroes. To deal with their emotional awareness. But it never stops for us.
Indeed.
Islam, Negro problem.
Yes, we are. Peace
Yes,
and
sir.
love,
All right, Moors, Islam, Hotep.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Yeah.
Got it great, man.
So there it is. Day 2 down. Tomorrow we got day 3. We're Sutton Rabe out in Scarborough. Skype again. We'll just quickly close out with the prayer. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
And
my salvation. By night. And by day.
To
His holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.